problem.
All right, thank you. We are going to call the Architectural Review Committee meeting open July 6, 2026. Could we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and welcome everybody. Member Dillon?
Here.
Member Elliott?
Here.
Member Roseman?
Here.
Member Thomas has not renewed her tenure, so she did end her tenure with the last meeting, so we want to thank her for her service, but she will not be joining us anymore. Vice Chair Walsh?
Here.
And Chair O'Donnell?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. All right. Acceptance of the agenda. The Architecture Review Committee will discuss the order of the agenda, may amend the order, note abstentions, request consent calendar items be removed from the consent calendar for discussion. Any such matters? Doesn't look like it. Public comments. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Architectural Review Committee on consent calendar and other agenda items. The items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Although the Architectural Review Committee values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take action on items not listed on the posted agenda. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. If there's an item on the agenda tonight and you'd like to speak at that time, you can. But if there's anybody who wishes to address this committee on general subject matter, we would entertain that at this moment. Anybody online? Okay, moving on. Item 1, consent calendar. The following routine matters may be acted upon by one motion. Individual items may be removed by the board for separate discussion at this time. Approval of the minutes from the June 15, 2026 meeting. Do we have
Motion to approve.
motion to approve? Do we have a second? We got a motion to approve in a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All
Mr.
right.
Chair?
Yep.
I need to back up just a moment. You guys need to take a vote on the acceptance of the agenda, please.
Did I skip over that?
I think you did.
Okay. How about acceptance of the agenda? The Architectural Committee, yeah. Okay, so we need a motion for the acceptance of the agenda.
I move that we accept the agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay.
The second was Charles and Bob?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We are moving on to new business. Item 3A, a request by 100 Mile House for a major architectural review to construct a 2,749 square foot single-family residence at a maximum building height of 10.7 feet at a 9,417 square foot undeveloped hillside property located at 2700 North Vista Grande, Zone R1C, Section 3, Case AR 2026-0026. Noriko, it looks like this is your project. Could we have a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. So the first project tonight is a proposed single-family residence at a hillside property. The applicant is proposing to construct a new single-family residence that is 2,741 square feet in size, which includes a primary residence that is 2,242 square feet and a 507 square foot garage. The proposed maximum building height is 10.7 feet, single story, and the size of the lot is 9,417 square feet, which is slightly substandard of the zoning area. So the project site is a vacant lot located at the intersection of Vista Grande Avenue and Cabrito in the Little Tuscany neighborhood. As you can see here, this project site is adjacent to existing developments on all sides except the south, which is the San Jacinto Mountains. And here are some photographs to show the surrounding environment of this project site. As the staff mentioned, site is adjacent to existing developments on all sides except the south, and the south side is San Jacinto Mountain open area. The city's zoning code defines that property, which includes any area that's 10% or more in slope, is a hillside property. And this is a slope map that applicant submitted to the city, which shows that this property is definitely a hillside. As you can see here, the site's topography slopes down from the street towards the northwest corner of the site. And the site includes an area that's shown here in green and blue, which shows quite a bit of topography. Right now, all the runoff actually is directed towards this blue area, which further extends to the adjacent property to the north. And here's a site plan and a proposed area view submitted by the applicant. And again, this is a proposed single-family residence, 2,242 square feet for the primary residence and 507 square feet for the garage. And the vehicular access is provided off Cab Little Drive, and the house is designed with an outdoor courtyard area as well as a pool. And the house includes, in addition to garage, there is the bedroom and a master bedroom. In terms of the layout, this is a pretty standard single-family residence. The site design also includes the equipment enclosure in the west side yard, and also the enclosures for the equipment and trash bins in the north side yard. And these are the proposed elevations. The staff mentioned the maximum building height is 10.7 feet, and the proposed design incorporates the similar architectural treatment on all elevations. And this is here the additional elevations just show. The applicant is proposing floor to ceiling glazing to break the voids in all exterior elevations. And again, this same construction materials applied on all elevations. And here are the roof plans. So the applicant is proposing the parasol or the roof, which is shown on the right side of this image. And this parasol is going to be extending over the outside courtyard by the pool. And although it's not shown on this particular plan, the applicant is also proposing solar panels on the lower level roof as well. And as staff mentioned, currently the runoff is directed from the street towards the northwest corner of the site. And typically for hillside development, staff recommends what's called a step design, a design that kind of responds to the existing natural topography of the site. But for this particular property, for this particular project, the applicant is proposing what's called a level design to address the site's existing hydrology issue. And that is to propose a leveled design. In other words, elevating the path a little bit so that it's going to create a very mild slope, so that instead of directing runoff towards the property to the north, with this design, actually the drainage will be led to the street. So this is just to show you what's being proposed for this project. And here are the cross sections of the proposed site. Again, the project incorporates what's called a level design. For this particular project, the applicant is proposing a 6-foot high retaining wall in the back, and there will be the storm drain trench that's going to be located underground in the rear yard to direct the runoff from the property towards the street. And here is the proposed landscape plan. Instead of landscaping every inch of the open space with the planting materials, applicant is proposing the scattered plant placement to deliver organic style landscape design. And then also the design incorporates boulders to create a visual tie between the site and the San Jacinto Mountains on the south side of the property. Oops, sorry. And here are the proposed materials. Applicant is proposing concrete, stone, metal, and corten steel. The proposed color palette is what we call the desert neutral, which consists of very earth tone colors. And these renderings is just to show the street view of the property as well as the courtyard facing elevation of the proposed residence. The city's engineering design standards require the driveways to be located at least 6 feet away from the side property line. Project as proposed provides about 2.5 feet, but slightly less. And the project proposes enclosures for mechanical equipment and trash bins that are stored in the rear yard. However, the enclosures do not show any the screen or gate so that the contents may be visible to the adjacent property to the north. And then also, staff noticed that there's one landscape light fixture that is located just outside the property line. However, the project generally meets the required findings of the architectural and the hillside review criteria, and the project is in conformance with applicable regulations and guidelines as mentioned. And the implementation of the conditions of approval recommended by staff to address issues will not alter the nature of the project or the character of the proposed design. And in conclusion, staff recommends that the Architectural Review Committee determine that the proposed project is categorically exempt from an environmental review, specifically CEQA, under the Class 3 categorical exemption, and approve the application subject to conditions recommended by staff. So this concludes the staff presentation, and the staff and applicant are both available to answer any questions, and also the applicant has a short presentation that he would like to provide tonight.
All right, thank you. Questions of staff?
I have one. That stipulation about the offset of the driveway from the property line?
Yes.
Is that tied to the material of the driveway, or is it just the driveway?
Yes, it's just a driveway, so if I can, maybe I can show you here on this.
So it's not the fact that it's an impervious surface, it's that it's a driveway?
Right, it's just a driveway,
Okay.
so. Excuse me. So the setback that I'm talking about is the distance from here to the edge of the driveway right here. So that needs to be 6 feet. So the applicant may kind of redraw the driveway line just to provide the 6-foot setback as required by the engineering department.
Noriko, Mr. Maneras from engineering has just joined us, and I'd like him to step up here for any questions that we might have. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Is this a common occurrence on hillsides where you've got an odd-shaped lot?
Yeah. Just for the room, all of the easy lots in Palm Springs have already been built on. So, here we are. Like Noriko just explained, the 6-foot offset from a property line is strictly really because most of your driveways are against property lines. You don't want two people backing out. It's a safety issue. That is an attempt to try to create more of a safety gap between the two. And you can see the driveway to the house to the north of it. It's fairly close there as well. When they're odd shaped like this, there is a little give and take that we can do on them, but we try to stay consistent with that as best we can.
Noriko, was there any letters or conversations with the neighbors to the east?
Neighbors to the east, the staff did send out the notification letters to all the adjacent properties, including the one on the east side. So that will be, so that's going to be 785 West Caballito.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. And no, nothing was received?
No, nothing's been received.
Any other questions of staff?
Yeah, Rick, can you, in a simplified fashion, take us through the drainage of the site?
Here we go. Okay.
Emphasis on the word simplify.
I will do my best. The hydrology out here is the entire intersection, not just here, but also the intersection as you're going down Cabrillo, as you're heading down Cabrillo to this next intersection. This part of Vista Grande, as it comes down, you have all this water that drains from basically the mountain, comes across here kind of uninterrupted. And there's a low spot right here in Vista Grande. The water currently hits here, runs through this lot. There is a little wall here, hits the wall, goes around the house that's currently there, ends up on the next street over, and then ends up in that intersection. The county back in their infinite wisdom 50 years ago, did not do anybody any good by not grading these streets correctly. They did what was called oil. They brought in a blade, they bladed off the street, they threw down some asphalt and said, we got a street. Fast forward 50 years, we're left with all of these drainage problems. The house that is currently being finished on this corner over here knows that all too well because they end up having a low spot in their, right at their garage, which they had to fix. There's been 2 different hydrologists look at this and try to determine what's the best way to deal with the water. Any way you slice it, the water is going to end up in that intersection going through this house. So in this case, it made more sense for them to rise this lot up in the back, because the whole lot tilts towards the back, raise it up, and they're actually going to put in a curb and gutter system that is actually going to capture the water, bring it around, and push it onto the street where it's supposed to go, and it ends up in the same exact location. So in this particular case, rather than leaving the lot normally how it would be, and then just retaining in the back, finding a way to overflow it, we're actually allowing them to tilt this the opposite way. There's great elevation differences all the way around, so it's not going to make any difference. So we were okay with the concept, and then they agreed to do the curb and gutter system that would actually push the water to the next intersection. So it all is going to work out pretty well.
And then you are collecting up your own roof runoff and site runoff.
Yeah, so the on-site runoff they're still dealing with.
And where does that go?
It goes into, I don't remember where the detention system is, but it overflows over here, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Right, it's to the top of the page there, just along the back.
This is the top, yeah, yeah.
So in engineering's opinion, this is an improvement in the neighborhood?
What's that?
It's an improvement in the neighborhood from
Absolutely.
engineering's point?
Absolutely. It actually captures water that is currently a drainage. Really, all the drainage is dumping on this poor guy here. It's pretty unfortunate that he's had to deal with that for so long, but this is going to fix that.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Any other questions of staff? All right, I'd like to invite the applicant up to make a 10-minute or less presentation.
Hopefully less.
Welcome.
Thanks. Hi. Nice to see you guys again. In a month? No, 2 months, I guess. And you have our presentation
Yes,
loaded?
she's
Oh,
loading
great,
it.
great. Thank you. So just a couple of extra things to point out that Rick started to touch on, and we'll jump into this a little bit. Many people have tried to develop this lot in the past. I live on the street just 10 doors down. I live at 2800 North Vista Grande at the other end of the block. So I've watched this site change hands and go through development many times. And I think you guys have seen a few of those as well. The solution, we'd explored a solution to retain a lot of water on the backside with a massive retention basin. And after speaking to Rick multiple times, our team and Rick came to the conclusion that redirecting it around the corner was the best. It does involve dropping the grade of the street just a little bit to get rid of that little divot, but that improvement in the neighborhood is well worth that investment to not have as large a retention basin on the site. And it is helping the overall neighborhood. In addition to dealing with our water, as you are aware, the house on Cabrillo that's just been finished on the other side of Cabrillo, down one block at Gersol and Cabrillo, which is kind of reads as a two-story house. They've just finished their grading around their corner, which also deals with water running down the street. So overall, this whole Cabrillo stretch of the street is going to be improved with these two properties improvements.
Sorry, can you just give me one
No,
second?
sure, yeah,
Because
yeah.
your file is actually PDF.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. To give a little bit of context, a little more context in the neighborhood. So there is a lot of topography on this site. The main point of topography is this drainage swale that runs through the site. The biggest delta though, from the highest peak, which is adjacent to the north property, right at the retaining wall that's there, to the lowest point on the property is only 8 feet. So it's not a massive delta. If you get rid of a very steep slope up against that retaining wall and level out this really deep kind of concentrated drainage swell, we're only at about a 4-foot delta from highest to lowest peak. So we're, as Rick said, we're raising our pad up a couple feet to help slope a little bit more towards the street. And what's left is at the maximum a 6-foot high retaining wall along the north side of the property against that neighbor. In most cases, it's actually going to be around 2 feet or so. So it's a pretty minimal retaining wall that we're actually putting in. Our whole goal and our client's request from the beginning was to create something that's very, very subtle and really really hugging the landscape as much as possible. We're not going as far as following the topography because of the drainage issues, but we are limiting our development, as was noted, to 10.7 or 10.7 feet to the top of our parapet, or top of our parasol. And our floor plate is also, and you can see on here, we're actually the floors are, the elevations are on here. We're actually just about 3 feet down from the neighbor to the northwest here, and about 2 feet or 2.5 feet above the neighbor to the east. So we're right in between those two neighbors in terms of finished floor elevation. So we're really trying to be as low as possible and have as minimal impact on the neighborhood as possible. Most of the houses in the neighborhood, if you go to the next slide, actually, we'll start to see some of the other houses in the neighborhood, typically are gable roofs. Some of them with a little bit of a higher ceiling plane as well, which elevates those gables quite high. We're trying to be, again, as minimal as possible and respectful of the views of those two neighbors to the east and north. They don't really have a lot of view out to our project. If you go to the next slide, yeah, you can see the neighbor to the north here on the top left image is, again, elevated about 2.5, 3 feet above where our finished floor will be. They don't look onto our property at all, really. And the neighbor to the back is about 35 feet or so. Their house is about 35 feet back from our property line. So they still will have actually a view of the mountain, considering our fairly low roof elevation. And the neighbor to the east or northeast that's still under renovation, they really don't look at this property at all. It's a garage on that side of the property. So we have no concerns about any obstructing any views. We're trying to do as best a job as possible of keeping the views from the distance as open as possible. A couple more slides down. And we'll actually get into one other thing I wanted to point out actually in this is the preliminary site plan. This is just pre-us. This is a kind of existing topography on here, and you'll see kind of running through the property, that low point, hard to see with the gray, but it runs kind of directly north-south on the sheet. And you'll see the finished floor elevations again, as I mentioned, with ours being at 6, sorry, not next file. If you go to the next file, sorry. Finished floor at 692 is just a couple feet higher than the existing grade at that point. One thing I did want to point out, there was an error in the documents that you guys received. If you go to the next slide, this is the site section with our house in place. The existing grade that was noted on your documents is actually inaccurate. We adjusted it a little bit. The civil engineer sent a different scale for his horizontal and vertical, and it wasn't interpreted properly. So we've adjusted the existing grade on here, and you can see that as the dashed line in both of these elevations to show how really minimal fill that we're actually doing on this site. And then if we jump ahead just a few slides to the first rendering, I just wanted to touch a little bit more than Noriko did on the palette overall. One more. Yeah, thanks. There you go. So again, as was noted, we're really trying to embrace like a desert kind of warm, neutral palette. There's a hint of green in everything. The stucco that we're using is a gray, but has a hint of green. We're trying to stay within this very natural kind of desert vegetation palette of muted sages and within that family. We're using a natural stone that's imported from Mexico, but it's a beautiful white Cantera stone to absorb heat. These become a couple of large thermal masses on the south and west side of the home to really absorb some heat and release it at night. As was mentioned, we have this green parasol that comes out, and it's doing a lot of things actually. A portion of that parasol is actually covering the roof plane itself, which helps reduce heat load on the roof. The parasol is actually what's going to be holding our solar panels as well. And it also then shades certain areas very strategically. So this outdoor covered living space at the front of the home is providing more comfortable outdoor living space for the owners. It's a very challenging site. It's a very visible public site, and we didn't want to close it off with hedges. We wanted to keep it as open as possible for the views. And to do that, we also didn't want them to have living room windows that were right up facing the street. So what we've done is actually pushed the public living spaces back to the back of the site, to that northeast side, and opened it up to this kind of interior, kind of open courtyard. So they will feel a little more removed when they have their windows open in the evenings when people walk by, but they'll still have this view of the mountains as well. And if you noted on the floor plan, there are three kind of other interior courtyards, these little 8 by 12 foot courtyards that give other views of the mountain from other rooms. So even the rooms at the back of the house, without adding a lot of extra square footage, still get glimpses of the mountain peaks through those the open areas in the tops of those courtyards. So we're doing a lot, as much as we can, within this very tight, compact footprint, and helping the owners feel like they have a much larger footprint and a larger house than they do by connecting it so much to the outside. I think that covers everything I wanted to talk about. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
It's a really good set of drawings, and your presentation and Noriko's presentation helped us understand it, so thanks.
Thank you.
Any questions of the applicant? Yeah.
Your parasol, it is metal decking?
It is a perforated corrugated metal.
Okay.
And it looks suspended below steel beams.
And your columns are steel?
Steel, yeah, they're a custom kind of cruciform shape
But
steel.
you're framed in wood?
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
Currently, yes.
Okay, that's great.
One of the, if I can touch on the metal, actually,
Yes.
one of the requests of our client from day one was to be future-proof and as fireproof as possible. So all of the exterior materials are stucco or stone and metal. Everything that's exposed is Class A rated, yeah.
It has a wonderful scale to it.
Thank you.
And, you know, it's interesting, you've limited the overall height of the building to just a bit over 10 feet, and yet it delivers a sort of a lightness and a gracefulness that is very successful.
Any other questions of the applicant?
I do. So if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was a neighbor that was not so happy about it, about the views maybe looking into the house. And did we move the trash bins or something?
This is are you recalling a different project? Because this is our first time.
Okay.
Yeah. That was
Sorry.
Yes.
Different
Same guy,
project.
different project.
Sorry. But I will
I
say.
get our projects confused all the time, too.
Yeah. Okay, good to know. I don't feel bad. Visually, it's stunning.
Thank you.
I love the use of the sage, the green, the indoor-outdoor feel with also keeping the living areas private. I love the open sort of fencing. I think it looks really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Question.
Yep.
Am I seeing this correctly, that the windows are going up to the very tippy top of the
Yes.
building structure?
Yeah, we wanted to try and minimize the number of exterior walls and elements and reduce the headers. So the glass goes right up to the parapet, and there's a header and drywall in behind that
Okay,
glass.
so there's a little bit of drywall in the
Exactly.
vision light.
Yeah. It's really to extend those windows up and take advantage of, even though we are a low ceiling, an 8-foot ceiling, it's a fairly compact vertical. We wanted to try and elevate that by having the glass extend up as high as possible.
Mission accomplished there.
Tell us a little bit about, you live down the street,
Yeah.
and you're in the brunt of that wind every
You know it.
season when it blows.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about this pool location. Do you have any concerns that it's exposed and out there on the corner?
Not really. It's windy no matter how you cut it. My pool is on the north side, and we get some tree debris in the pool, but it's not bad. Yeah, there's nowhere else really to put the pool on this site of this size. And as it is, it's a pretty compact. It's a plunge. It's not a big lap pool. Yeah, with limited square footage. We thought it was most important to keep the pool out on this side where we have a large setback on two sides because we have the front at 25 and a side at 20. This is dead buildable space, so we're using a lot of the buildable area for structure, and the pool really fit here more than anywhere else. Yeah, it's probably not my favorite spot for the pool, but there's nowhere else to put it. So, other than doing a little 6x6 foot spa somewhere else.
The parasol looks like it's designed for flexibility, and if the homeowners move in and they realize 6 months into living there that they want to add more solid parasol elements, can they do that easily?
Absolutely, yeah. The whole thing was screwed together, so it's easy to add. Yeah.
Okay.
You said that it was
intent
going to
was-
hold some of the PV. That's not showing up.
Correct. It's on the back side, which is over the kind of the enclosed living space, over the kitchen and living room at the back side of the house is where the PV will show up. Yeah.
All right, any other questions? You know, rather than sort of belaboring this, I'm going to move approval as submitted.
I'll second that.
You know, we got a motion, we got a second. Any further discussion?
It's fast track.
All right, can we have a roll call vote, please?
That's another last one.
Member Dillon,
Yes.
Member Elliott,
Yes.
Member Roseman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Walsh,
Yes.
and Chair O'Donnell.
Yes, passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Nice job.
All right, moving on to item 3B, a request by In-N-Out Burger for a major architectural review to construct a new 3,886 square foot restaurant and auxiliary drive-through facility at a 2.35 acre site located at 1801 East Palm Canyon Drive, Zone CSC, Section 25, case number AR 2025-0040. Rico, it looks like this is your project as well. Could we have a report, please?
So the second project of the night is an In-N-Out Burger project. The applicant is proposing to construct a new restaurant, which is 3,886 square feet in size at a maximum building height of 25.8 feet, single story. The proposed site design also includes 81 space, a parking lot, a drive-through facility, new landscape, trash enclosure, outdoor lighting, in addition to amenities, which include outdoor dining areas and canopy. So the project site is a former Bank of America building site, and the building has been demolished, but the proposed project happens where the building previously existed, in the front portion of the lot which faces East Palm Canyon Drive. And the site is actually adjacent to a frontage road, which is a public road, which is going to be vacated as a part of this project. And there are also two private roads on the site south and east sides. And this is a proposed site plan. The building will be located near the northeast corner of the site, and right next to the building, there will be two outdoor dining areas, one on the west side and the other one on the east side under a canopy. And also the site design includes a trash enclosure and an associated canopy. And the proposed drive-through facility is designed to accommodate 42 vehicles in queuing. As staff mentioned, the frontage road will be vacated as a part of this project, which is going to become the public sidewalk. And in addition to that, there will be a perimeter landscape that goes around the drive-through as well as the parking lot. So as of today, the major development permit application has been reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission, subject to conditions of approval. And this took place in July of last year. And as a part of this, the application review, the Planning Commission also made an environmental determination that the project is categorically exempt from the CEQA review. And as a part of the conditions of approval that the Planning Commission adopted, it required the establishment of a joint subcommittee to review the proposed project prior to the architectural review, and the subcommittee to help the applicant's team in addressing several design concerns. And these are the primary concerns that the Planning Commission had in terms of design. The Planning Commission required a complete redesign, and then also the Planning Commission stated that they are looking for the architecture that is contextually more appropriate for the shopping center, and they reduce the bulky and heavy appearance of the building, and simplify the cornice details, and the change of the exterior building color from the bright white to the earthstone color. The Planning Commission also recommended a color temperature of 3,500 Kelvin, and a landscape and a barn and a wall as necessary to provide adequate screening for the drive-through, and additional shading in the parking lot, and more shading at the west outdoor dining area. So as a part of the major development permit application review, the planning commission approved the site circulation and the general layout. So to accommodate this project, there will be a removal of the existing curb bump out on the East Palm Canyon Drive, and then the creation of a new 80-foot wide driveway approach and a median on the East Palm Canyon Drive side, as well as just establishing a two-way drive aisle. And then also the addition of a new lane on the Smoke Tree Lane as well as a private road to accommodate the proposed drive-through use. And the staff mentioned the queuing area accommodates 42 vehicles. And there will be a multi-purpose path, that's the meandering path. That's gonna be created as a result of the vacation of the private road. So these are just to compare what was reviewed by the planning commission and what's being proposed for this major architectural review application. The top elevation, so the original, and the bottom shows the revised. The original design included, as planning commission wanted to have it changed, had a very heavy cornice and and then also the stone veneer waistcoats. And that's being removed and changed, as you see here. And these are just to show the same elevation rendering, but more detailed elevation with the details on it. As you see here, the exterior elevation is treated with reveals that runs horizontally on the building elevation. And a similar design treatment is proposed for this east elevation, which faces a drive-through. And again, more detailed drawings of the east elevation here. And the south elevation is the primary elevation of the building. Instead of the previously proposed, the overhang or the canopy, now the project proposes a butterfly design. And then also the elevation includes architectural indentation at the southwest corner of the building, which is going to be illuminated at night, in addition to awning with a horizontal illumination band as well. And also this revised design incorporates a glass walk at the southwest corner of the building. And these are the technical drawings of the elevation, as well as the rendering that was shown on the previous slide. And this is a west elevation, which faces outdoor dining area. And these are the detailed elevation and rendering. Oops. So the proposed building design includes 4 tower elements on each elevation. And the restaurant is designed in such a way that the customer dining area is located in the west side of the building. And these are the building elevations. The applicant is proposing to place mechanical equipment on the roof behind the parapet, and the equipment will not be visible from the public view. And here is the proposed color palette. And actually, there's an actual material board in front of you, so if you can just pass along. The project proposes the in and outs corporate colors, and that's white and red. And that color theme is applied in amenities such as patio tables. And these are the renderings during the daytime and the nighttime. As the staff mentioned, the proposed design includes architectural indentations. It's going to be illuminated at night. The parapet cap in the roof are designed with underlight, which is going to outline the building at night. And just a different view of the building. And additional renderings taken from different angles, including the drive-through. And this is a proposed trash enclosure design, which resembles the previous the architectural design. design of the associated canopy. In addition, in response to the planning commission's comments about the parking lot landscaping, the applicant is proposing the addition of 2 diamond islands in the middle parking lot here, in addition to the addition of 1 shade tree by the west dining area. And now, as staff mentioned, as a part of the major development permit application review, the planning commission noted several design concerns. The applicant maintains that the current submission has fully addressed the comments provided by the planning commission and the joint subcommittee while balancing in and out's need to maintain a corporate identity. Staff thinks that the proposed design incorporates different elements of different architectural style, and the conditions of approval recommended to allow the proposed architectural styles to better integrate and deliver a contextually appropriate design. And then the recommended conditions of approval include some of these items that's shown on the slides. The first one is the treatment of building corners. Square off the building corners, parapet corners, and the parapet roof corners, and remove the keystone above the entrance door, and reduce the facial height of the awning located at the southwest corner of the building, and remove the horizontal reveals proposed on the all building elevation, and simplify the design of the trash enclosure, and replace red push pistache and olive proposed in the parking lot and the sidewalks with other planting materials that provide denser canopies such as tipu and Indian rosewood, and increase the internal dimensions of the islands to 6 feet from 5 feet to ensure the health of the trees, and then also the metal background of the illuminated band at the southwest corner of the building to be painted to match the color of the exterior of the building. So staff finds that the proposed project is consistent with the intent objectives of the general plan. And also the project meets some of the architectural review criteria such as fenestration, materials, soil control, and equipment screening as proposed. And also this project also meets applicable development standards given that it's subject to the staff recommended conditions. And the recommended conditions of approval are intended to make the overall design more internally cohesive and then establish a visual tie between the project and the Smoke Tree Village. And recommended conditions of approval address design concerns without altering the character or the identity of the project. And in conclusion, staff recommends that the architectural review accept that the proposed project is categorically exempt from the CEQA review under the Class 32 categorical exemption, and approve the application subject to the conditions of approval recommended by staff. So this concludes the staff presentation, and applicant is available in the audience, and also the applicant's team has a presentation slide that they would like to share. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Noriko. Questions of staff?
Is this actually part of Smoke Tree, which is Smoke Tree Commons or Smoke Tree
Village.
Village? Is it technically part of Smoke Tree Village?
Yes.
And it's covered under any covenants of Smoke Tree Village in terms of development?
We actually have a representative from the Smoke Tree Village today, so she can respond to those
Okay.
questions.
Any other questions of staff?
Noriko, the recommendations that staff came up with in your report, those were culled from we had 2 subcommittee meetings, right?
No, there was only one. The joint subcommittee?
That Lance and I were at, yes.
Yeah, Vice Chair Walsh
Yes,
and
that was a
I
joint
attended
subcommittee.
2, we attended 2.
Are you talking about after the major development permit application review?
It's been a long time.
Yeah,
We're old.
yeah.
Sorry. The one that I recall is the one after the major development permit. Maybe there was a meeting prior to that, but
Yeah.
the joint subcommittee meeting that I'm referring to in the report is the one after the major
Okay,
development.
thank you.
So this is the last this is the last allowable meeting? Or is there one more still? Am I hearing there's been 4? or 3, or?
Well, that was,
There's been
but that was for
Couldn't do it,
different
right?
application.
was it?
Yes, it was for the major development. This is the first meeting for major architectural review application.
In total, though, I think this is the fourth. They had their early meeting, they had their planning commission meeting, they had the design meeting with them between this meeting and development permit, and then this meeting. We did have to.
Yes,
So
if we
this is
count.
the fifth meeting,
So tonight, we either have to accept or deny.
yes.
Okay.
Noriko, I think in the question on quantity of meetings, I think the point was just glossed over. Are the recommendations, were they brought forward from discussions that we had in those subcommittee meetings?
No.
Or were those entirely staff-driven?
Yes, these are the staff recommended conditions of approval based on the latest official submittal or the major architectural review application.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think what we want to do tonight, we'll have the applicant make a presentation, then we will allow the audience and members of the public who wish to speak on this matter to speak. Then we'll allow the applicant to address any concerns that were brought up by the public, and then we'll go into discussion. So we'd like to invite the applicant up and the applicant's team. Please state your name and what your relationship to the project is.
I'm going to join if that's okay.
Okay.
Good evening, Honorable Chair O'Donnell and fellow members of the Architectural Review Committee member. My name is Peter Kolmatiki and I'm a development manager within Alberta. Thankful to be here this evening to discuss our proposed development. First, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank staff, especially Noriko and Chris Hadwin, who's not here this evening, for their hard work and responsiveness during the development review process. I'd also like to thank members of the architectural subcommittee. Your memory serves you right. You actually did attend 2 meetings.
Thank you.
This might be old. No, you're not old. That took time out of your schedules to meet with us. All of you have provided great communication, and the commitment you share for the city of Palm Springs is truly impressive and should be recognized. I would like to share a brief history of Alberta architecture and the surrounding areas leading up to tonight. As you can see here, we have a few stores in the greater Palm Springs area. This shows the evolution of design in the desert communities throughout the years, starting in the late 1980s. As you can see on the screen, we've got locations in Thousand Palms, Indio, La Quinta, and Rancho Mirage. Who is In-N-Out today? The above collage gives you a visual of what current In-N-Out design language is. Common elements are white stucco buildings, exposed LED, metal awnings, and stone wainscots. Sorry, this clicker is not working so great. Consistent with our design language, this building is what was presented to the Planning Commission back in July of 2025, just about a year ago. Some additional views to the rear and the associated canopy in the drive-through area. With any board, commission, or hearing body, it is quite common to get a variety of opinions. However, this is super helpful. It is what breathes life into projects and helps foster alignment between city and private development. However, there is one prominent theme that has remained consistent throughout this process. This building has to be unique to the character of Palm Springs. Speaking of character, Palm Springs has a lot of it. As you walk, bike, or drive through various neighborhoods, you are surrounded by a sense of community with a deep variety of architectural styles. All of this leads us to where we are today. I swear I'm clicking this. An In-N-Out building unlike any other and unique to Palm Springs. You will not find this building in the In-N-Out portfolio. Noriko's showing you some slides of the renderings previously, so I'll just shuffle through these quite quickly. One thing I did want to emphasize on this particular view is we did hear a lot of feedback for providing shade on the western end. We are proposing field-grown olives here. We are open to the changes that staff had recommended on the species of trees, but we definitely want, at time of planting and opening, to have trees in this particular area shield that entire western patio and provide shade for customers. We listened and took time to be receptive to the various feedback we received. This is a design that blends in and out's design language and the unique character and style of Palm Springs. Again, we remain committed and excited to be a part of the Palm Springs community.
That was concise.
There's soccer on.
I didn't say that.
Chair and esteemed members, my name is Tracy Conrad. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Smoke Tree Ranch, and we are the underlying landowner for this project. We've spent 2 years really thinking long and hard about how to reposition the shopping center. This is a separate parcel. It is not part of Smoke Tree Village, and it's not subject to the master lease that Smoke Tree Village is. And I would contend that there's some nuances about the frontage road, that it is on Smoke Tree property. It is subject to an easement. It's a more technical discussion, but I understand we have spent a lot of time to mitigate things that you will probably hear from the public, that we've been reading comments on social media. And I want you to know how thoughtfully and deeply the board considered what to do. What do you do with a shopping center that's now 60 years old? And tempting as it is to re-adjudicate the decision that was made in the 1960s to make this a shopping center, it's impossible to do now. It is a shopping center. So it might as well be a viable one, an economically viable one, a vibrant one, and it has, over the course of the long-term leases that were in place, suffered some, I am happy to admit. And you can see the evidence of that in some of the other parcels over which Smoke Tree does not have control, like the Coco's building, which is unfortunate. So the board struggled to find a way to reposition the center and do it in a way that will lift everybody. And we believe that In-N-Out is the way to do that. There is no better operator of a business. Their sites are squeaky clean, they're well-staffed, they're nicely lit, and they understand what they're doing, and there is no better credit tenant available today in the marketplace. So the board came to that conclusion, and we've worked very hard to come to this. Now, the land use got approved at the Planning Commission last July, so that's not what's before you. And we spent a long time mitigating traffic and noise, and the drive-through was already there. There was already a drive-through. It's been grandfathered. So the site issues, I don't think are at issue tonight. I think what you're here to decide is the architecture. And the Planning Commission was very forceful, because I was at that meeting and at the subcommittee meeting, about giving Palm Springs something absolutely unique. Well, you got it. You got something that's absolutely unique. Is it what you would have designed or you would have designed? Probably not. But, you know, it's a private corporation with a corporate identity. And what Smoke Tree has decided it cares about is revitalizing the shopping center. We care about landscaping, and we've gotten a lot more landscaping. I believe it's abundantly landscaped thanks to the conditions put in by the city. And we care about lighting. And I do believe that there's a misconception about the traffic, because we've added a deceleration lane basically from Sunrise all the way to Smoke Tree Lane. We've added a right-hand turn only lane into this parcel so that any stacking traffic will be handled there. There's abundant stacking spaces as well as abundant parking places. So, you know, we care, we live there. So we want the traffic to be contained on the site. And the site is much bigger than, for instance, the Rancho Mirage site. That example is happening on a half an acre, and this site is more than 2 acres. So I do think it will it be busy? Yes, I hope so. will it be obnoxiously so? I don't believe so. I think it's going to be handled really well on site. So you're here to discuss the architecture, which you will have, I'm sure, very valid comments. But the one comment that counts, I am told, is the owner of In-N-Out. And
To a degree.
Well, okay. Well,
It's harmonizing.
it's a balance
Both.
between you know, our very sophisticated design standards in Palm Springs and corporate needs and identity. So I am here to answer any questions that you have. I would ask you to approve it as conditioned. I think the conditions are fair and reasonable. And the concerns that the general public has, they're valid, but they're about the land use, and the land use is about this parcel, and that has already been entitled. So I'm here to answer any, I think I understand the nuances of the shopping centers better than anyone else here. So I'll answer any questions that you have, and
Okay, Tracy, we're going to put you in the same thing as the development team. So
Okay.
any questions?
When you talk about the site being 2 acres, is that the portion of the site that's being redeveloped, or is that the entire site, including the empty lot
The entire
south
site.
of that?
The entire site occupies 2.53 acres.
yeah, so, but what will get redeveloped is what we call the drive aisle, which is the entrance to the village that comes off of Smoke Tree Lane.
Now, I guess what I'm asking is when you talk about it being larger than the Rancho location,
Even the part that is
can I
just,
finish
oh,
my,
I'm sorry.
what I'm saying? You're saying that it's a larger parcel than the Rancho location, and in the packet, there is a dotted line around the property that includes an empty lot south of the developable site. So what I'm asking is, when you talk about it being larger than the Rancho site, does it include the entire site, or just the portion you're planning to redevelop?
Again, the portion of the development, not the vacant lot that's south of the private road,
That's my
is 2.53 acres.
It's, I hope, it is much larger than the Rancho Mirage is really my point, so that it has ample parking as well as ample stacking.
Okay, any other questions of the applicant? All right, well, if you guys will go have a seat for a moment, we will invite the public up and we'll bring on any folks online to address, our committee. So, do we have a list? Do we have cards? How are we gonna tackle this?
Want to pick up the ones online first?
Online first, yes. We have, Chris.
I think 3
Everybody-
minutes.
Everybody who's speaking now have 3 minutes to speak, right?
Okay.
So the first person that's online is Chris Minrad.
Welcome, Chris. You'll have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me?
She muted.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Anyway, I'd like to address not just the design of the In-N-Out building, but in general, the very mediocre design that we have been getting approved over and over again over the last at least 10 years, maybe more. This particular fast food business is really a heavy lift for the residents of Palm Springs. It'll be extremely busy. It'll have long hours late into the night. It's going to change that shopping center heavily. So if we have to allow more fast food restaurants to come into our town, I'm not even sure why we need to do that, but somehow we must, then at least the building, the architecture that we get in that exchange should be exceptional, not just different, but actually exceptional. And the Architectural Review Committee is really the first stop where we can have a definitive impact on what our built environment looks like. You have an amazing opportunity to demonstrate what is really the Palm Springs brand, our commitment to modern architecture. We celebrate our historical modernist architecture, but I believe to further the town's brand, we need to concentrate our energies on new architecture. All over town, we've seen some rather mediocre projects popping up. I mean, Miralon, Canyon View near Rimrock, Cody Place, Elan, Dakota. It's a huge long list. Aloe, by the way, is a huge exception. And we don't have a lot of developable land left, and I think we need to demonstrate a commitment to good design, and that should really flow down from City Hall and out to the applicants. So I'm advocating that we suggest this be returned to the applicant for a reworking. They have in the past done some exceptional designs. Westwood Village comes to mind. So they're not unfamiliar with good design. The need to design a project that the city and the citizens can be proud of. This project can lead by example and show even other developers a way to a better built environment for all of us and take our celebration of great modern architecture into the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Menrad.
Is there anybody else that's in the online waiting room that would like to speak? Would you please raise your hand so we can identify you and open it up for you to speak? None?
No.
That's the end of the online public comment.
Okay. Do we have speaking cards for the folks that are here?
So the first person on the list here is Paul Valentino. Please come up and state your name, and
You'll have 3
you'll have
minutes.
3 minutes.
Paul Valentino. This project has the potential to be a traffic issue and air quality issue in 3 areas: a traffic study, the CUP, and the CEQA. Number 1, the traffic study. The study was conducted by the same group that provides information on all in and out locations. The number of adder cars makes no sense. If they're expecting 1,000 cars per day, as Google tells me, is a low average for a 3,800 square foot in and out with a 45 car drive-through, we should be seeing higher impact numbers than shown on that study. Instead, the traffic analysis has the adder volume based on data from November of 2020 during COVID. That may well explain the problem with the study and the reality in that many locations traffic nightmares from this chain have caused all over Southern California. Here is the page from the traffic analysis, page 11, and I have handouts for people who are interested that show that the study was, the adders are from November of 2020. Number 2, the CUP. The planning director told the planning commission at the July 2025 meeting that a conditional use permit was not required for this site. It is a CSC site and it was designed with a drive-through, so a CUP was not needed. Has one person validated this statement? When I search the Palm Springs code, when I get back, is that any drive-through requires a CUP, and the right of use of a prior business cannot convey a right of use to a new business. And that makes sense for so many reasons. The bank drive-through never had 45 cars waiting in it, and without a CUP, the city will have little recourse to force action to address mistakes or miscalculations in the future. Please allow this to go back to planning and require a CUP. Now, CEQA. The planning director told the planning commission at the July 2025 meeting that the city was going to claim this project qualifies for a CEQA categorical exemption for an infill property. The planning director does not believe 45 cars in a drive-through and parking to accommodate 81 cars poses a significant threat to traffic and air quality. However, there are 5 criteria that all must be met to qualify for the exemption, and given homes are within 300 feet of the site, the Diplomat and the Smoke Tree Studio apartments, that proximity triggers a careful review of the air quality impact criteria. The South Coast Air Quality Management District threshold for a 3,800 square foot fast food restaurant with a drive-through indicates that this can pose a significant impact. Peter, the In-N-Out rep, said in the Planning Commission meeting that 1 car will be processed every 30 seconds to a minute. That means 10 to 20 minute idling time per car. Several cities have been sued precisely on these grounds, claiming such an exemption, and have lost. For example, Rancho Mirage was sued because the city improperly bypassed equal guidelines for classifying the drive-through as a business infill project, exactly what you're being asked to do today. In response,
You have about a half a minute.
thank you. In response to the Rancho Mirage had to reduce the drive-through lanes. If anything, this project is an exception to the exemption and must go through the ER process of CEQA to ensure the safety of the people in the area. That's what it's there for. Please do not rubber stamp this and consider it an exempt project. Keep control and send it back to the city council, to the planning commission, or better yet, the city council, where the committee, where the where true community feedback can be heard. Please vote no.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Who's next?
Tom Doley, please come up, state your name.
Thank you, commissioners. I'm Tom Dahl, and I live in South Palm Springs. This public comment is in reference to item 3B, the In-N-Out, as we all know. One of Palm Springs' major industries is Modernism Week, drawing in over 100,000 visitors in a celebration of our unique Palm Springs School of Mid-Century Architecture by mostly local architects. Last year's economic impact is estimated at $62 million, with a cumulative impact exceeding $560 million over the past 20 years. That is multiplied by visitors who come here year-round to see and learn about our architectural heritage. Palm Springs has set itself apart from other desert cities by limiting the shapeless suburban sprawl of national chain stores and restaurants, building cookie-cutter brand statements that don't relate to their environment. In-N-Out has an opportunity to create a unique restaurant that can continue their brand statement while being respectful to the legacy of our city's rich architectural heritage. Instead, we get a confused white elephant with curved corners and glass block that belongs at Art Deco Miami. Some angled roofs and other details may wink at mid-century modernism, but just make it a confusing hot mess. Many people don't understand Palm Springs architecture. Clearly, that is the case here. To be appropriate, it could be mid-century, or it could be very modern, or it could refer to the Western Ranch style of the shopping center it's located in. Hiring a local architect who gets it would have helped In-N-Out get the right balance. They clearly got it when they hired architect Stephen Canner in 1998 to do the Googie-style Westwood store that Chris Menrad mentioned earlier, and other locations that made them conform to local design standards. McDonald's, Chipotle, and Jersey Mike's have restaurants on the next block, and they were designed to fit in. This is just one building, and we want to support new businesses, whether it be small local stores or large national chains. But little by little, we will lose what makes Palm Springs like no place else if we allow these mediocre designs to get built. I ask that the ARC stress to this corporation that it needs to try harder and do better before we can welcome them to this community. Thank you.
Who do we have next?
Chris Bale?
Welcome.
Hi, thanks everyone for having us. I'm Chris Bale, Palm Springs native, local business person. If the corporation wants to be in Palm Springs so badly, then they should modify their plans to fit in with the special flavor of Palm Springs. We've seen other examples of this. I'm going to be the third person to mention the Westwood location. And there are other California cities which I wasn't able to pinpoint, but they've done really nice designs that fit in with those localities. I thought that the Smoke Tree Shopping Center had its own design stipulation overlay anyway. Tracy corrected me on that thought. I vaguely remember that there being an issue when the other bank building on the west side of the center was saved a few years ago, but also now I know that that's not germane to this. I know that back in the middle of the last century, which is fun to say, Palm Springs had mid-century Spanish and Western style architecture. The Smoke Tree Shopping Center is a great example of that Western vernacular, and there's absolutely no reason why the city shouldn't demand architectural consideration in exchange for the corporation getting to put their restaurant in our town and making oodles of money from that. Palm Springs can and should always do better. Palm Springs is a brand, like so many other cities in California, that have their own architectural covenants to keep those places special. Palm Springs is just as special as Santa Barbara, which would never allow a new building that didn't follow their Spanish mission-style vernacular. It's time for Palm Springs to stick to its visual values that make it special. What was good for the Ralph's Center at the northwest corner of Ramon and Sunrise should similarly apply to the cohesive Smoke Tree Village Center. It should look like it's going to the same party as the other buildings. If this were built in one of the shopping centers by Ascena, Ramon, and Gene Autry, I'd be fine with it, but it should still match the center it's adjacent to. So I say you all should vote to deny. And finally, I have one question for the applicant, which was actually answered before, which was that I was curious if the Smoke Tree HOA benefited financially from this plot of land, and I know that they do. So those are my statements. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen Walks?
This is my first time speaking at a meeting like this, so forgive me. Actually, I'm just a citizen. I'm not anti In-N-Out. I'm pro Palm Springs. And pretty much all my thoughts have been iterated by previous speakers. But I think what's really important is that any business that comes to Palm Springs and asks to do business here needs to appreciate our heritage and help elevate that even more than it is now. I was thinking about this earlier when I was making notes, that Palm Springs is such an Instagrammable city. You always see people running around, Instagram location, et cetera, et cetera. I would like to see if this project is approved, once other technical issues are met, that In-N-Out becomes an Instagrammable location that draws people to it and is a point of pride for Palm Springs as well as In-N-Out. So, like I said, I'm just a citizen, and I was going to mention the Westwood shop. We don't have to replicate that, but it shows that certainly at one time, In-N-Out was committed to veering away from a very specific look. I'm not trying to be negative, but in my personal opinion, what we saw today could have been anywhere. And it in no way reflects the character of Palm Springs. So thank you very much for hearing me, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Stephen.
And thank you for your time.
Is there anybody else wishing to speak on this matter?
All right, and nobody's additional folks online. All right, I'd like to invite the applicant up to rebut anything that was just said or enlighten us further, if you'd like. Maybe just start with the air quality.
You know, that's been reviewed, accepted, scrutinized by planning staff, engineering, Rick, been approved by planning commission, so it's been vetted fully. Purview of this meeting, as I understand it, is to discuss architecture, site layout, comments that we've heard previously. You know, I'm not gonna sit up here and try to, you know, talk negatively about comments that were made. You know, everybody's entitled to their opinions, right? And then we've heard various opinions at planning commission of keep stone, don't keep stone, match smoke tree, don't match smoke tree. But the one universal theme that I've watched the hearings over and over again, revisited my notes from the subcommittee meeting, is that it's got to be unique. You know, some behind me may say that this is not unique, but it doesn't exist in our portfolio. And the one, you know, definition of being unique is one of a kind, right? And the gentleman before me spoke about being Instagrammable. You know, this is a one of a kind look, and if you were to take a picture in front of it, if it was built, that would be an Instagrammable moment for Palm Springs, because someone would recognize that building if it was there for a certain amount of time as being a one of a kind location. So that's what I feel makes it unique.
Anything to add?
Well, I heard at the planning commission and at our subcommittee meetings that it wanted to be, yes, unique, bespoke. Even the words iconic were sometimes uttered. So is it what you would have all designed or what I would have designed? Maybe not, but it's a 3,800 square foot building on a big lot that is landscaped. And yes, we do benefit financially. And Smoke Tree is trying to as I said, reposition its shopping center so that it doesn't deteriorate the way.
What's the
it
vacancy
has.
of the shopping center?
You know,
That's not relevant to this particular conversation, but thank you for the question.
Sure.
So I feel that we've had a lot of input, and In-N-Out has tried to address those comments, and I think they have. Have they done every single one? No. And I don't think we're going to get that. And without the final decision maker here in the room, I don't know how to tell you to proceed. The conditions seem reasonable, and they seem to leave some room for refinement. The idea of tabling this for redesign troubles me, because I don't know what will happen, if that will be the end of the project in Palm Springs. I don't know, and I don't think that anyone other than the top of the corporation can answer that question. So I don't know what to ask, if it's better to have a denial, or I think that the approval with conditions seems like a reasonable balance and a way to proceed forward to have this business in Palm Springs and help the shopping center.
And to echo on what Tracy's saying is, yeah, it's about balance, right? The conditions that staff's put forward are additional requests to adhere to comments that came out of subcommittee, came out of planning commission. We've made refinements all along in the last year. We were just sitting around. We were discussing internally what changes we could adopt that aligned with our current In-N-Out design, but not bring you back. And I was really adamant about that at the planning commission. I was not going to come back before subcommittee and before this architectural review committee with what I'll call a prototypical, for lack of a better term, stone wainscot building. I was not going to do that. And when I didn't do that, we're bringing back something different with additional conditions that could further, refine the building design, and we're okay with that.
All right, so, Mr. Lyon, we're going to need a little bit of clarity here, because we have, what I understand, this is our last meeting, and for myself personally, and I'm sure I speak for the entire committee, we want to try to elevate this building as far as we can. And I think if this is our last meeting, just denying it, I don't know that achieves anything to improve the building. So let me just ask a quick question. If we go through the list of conditions that staff have come up with, and we come up with what you may determine to be reasonable, additional suggestions, do we have some level of assurances that they'll actually happen, or are we wasting our time?
Nothing's a waste of time. But the 8 conditions that I've read in planning condition, I believe 18, I've gone through those. We're okay with those. Beyond that, if there's additional conditions, to answer that on the cuff at a meeting is very difficult.
The only thing we need to hear is having a substantive discussion, continue to have the discussion tonight is worth everybody's time. And you may say,
I would say yes, because your time is valuable.
Okay.
So let's here to just say no.
Ken, go ahead.
Noriko was commenting, my understanding of the rule of 5 or whatever it is that it is a cumulative set of meetings. So we know we've had a certain number of meetings thus far. However, Noriko recalls that she had a conversation or overheard a conversation with Chris in which she said it was 3 meetings per review board.
Right, but I do not, sorry, I don't recall definitively, but I remember hearing something that suggests that maybe the 3 maximum is actually part of the decision-making body. But
if you will continue your deliberations right now, I'm going to step out of the room and see if I can get that point clarified for you, okay?
Okay, and the point you're clarifying is if we continued this with additional suggestions for them to come back with new drawings, that would be potentially an option for us.
Understood.
Okay.
Understood.
All right.
Let me see what I can find out quickly.
All right. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is just open it up for committee comments. And Noriko, if you can pull up, start with the site plan. And maybe since Vice Chair Walsh and myself, we've had the advantage of seeing this a couple of additional times. Vice Chair Walsh, why don't you start with where you think additional measures or clarifications or additional design modifications could be made here that would make it a more fitting building for both the site and the city.
And we're going to look at the elevations.
Yeah, we can start wherever you want.
I think I first want to comment on the fact that, I mean, this has been around for a while. This started in 2024. I looked at my dates on this, and we have had 2 of our subcommittee meetings. The list of recommendations that we did come up with, yes, many are from staff, but they were also from the participants in that subcommittee, and we kind of sweat through those, and I have come to see them of valuable import in terms of refining the building to get it to a far better place. The delta change over time has impacted a pretty, forgive me, but it wasn't building appropriate, I think, for Palm Springs. And now at least I think it's within reach. Not ready for prime time. It is, by all stretch of imagination, it's not ready for prime time at this point. I do think, though, that what we're looking at is something that is fixable. One of the comments that was made that we would be the gatekeepers of architectural correctness or whatever I know it wasn't put like that, but what I have learned in sitting on the commission here is that we are limited to a prescriptive process. We can issue conditions and we can issue recommendations, but basically we can't grab the pencil. And it is breathtakingly frustrating not to be able to do that. And as Tracy Conrad put it, you would design it differently and you would design it differently, and no kidding. So it kind of takes a deep breath and a broad view to be comfortable in opining when you're limited to your tools and how direct you can be and how impactful and effective. So along with that comes acceptance of some stuff that sure as hell isn't perfect, but you have to work with it. Okay, I didn't want to ramble there, but I think we need an answer, and I'm going to tag team on what Lance was saying there. With a list of recommendations that we get through planning, you would cooperate and incorporate those, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
correct.
All right, that's a clear question and answer that we kind of needed, I do, in terms of proceeding with this. So with that, how do you want to do this?
Mr. Lyon, what did you learn?
This is the 5th and final meeting.
Okay.
Right.
And so you want to do the best you can to condition the project, if you can come to those conclusions. If not, then you deny the project. And if the project is denied tonight, the applicant has the right to appeal that decision.
Okay.
Right, okay, and I'm just going to make one more comment, and then we grab somebody else and get them talking. But it seems to me that a denial is sort of a no-think, clumsy action. That's how it feels to me. And it's like, I'm kind of hopelessly optimistic here that we can massage something and work through staff to get it to work. I think it's an important project. I do, period. And I think it's important that somehow we come to a meeting of minds and make something like this work.
Agreed.
Can I just interject for a section?
Yep.
If we're going to make additional conditions, I do not have the authority to say that, yes, we can make those changes, not at the dais. the conditions as written, the changes to the keystone, the changes to the tree species, the modifications to the rounding of the corners on the towers, the way that they're written currently, yes. If there are going to be additional conditions imposed, I can't tell you honestly that, yes, we can accept those here. Those have to be,
Depends what
they
they-
have to be reviewed, discussed.
Would it depend on the degree of those conditions, how?
Mr. Lyon, you were going to say.
Ultimately, there has to be a coming together of the minds. The applicant is going to listen and take in the recommendations that you're going to make. You're likely to add conditions of approval that have not already been seen. If that is the direction that you choose to go and that is the final vote, they can choose to, once they leave this meeting, go back and huddle and see if they can come to a positive reaction to those conditions. If they can't, then they would appeal it. But ultimately, you're doing the best job you can to make this project the best you can from an architectural perspective. And the applicant certainly thus far has been willing to listen to those kinds of conditions. And I think that's probably, as you said earlier, John, maybe the best outcome possible here is certainly do your best to make this building better. Let them take it back to their executive committee or whomever and see if they can work with the city on that. And if it comes back then where staff has to try to be the umpire and find some common ground, we'll do the best we can on that.
You mentioned the applicant has the option of appealing. So if we layer on so many conditions that they go back to their group and the group says no, their process is, I'm going to appeal this. Is that?
That's the option they have, yes.
Okay.
I think what we're hearing from this gentleman is that they've heard many of the conditions, and sounds like in most or all cases, they've attempted to agree to them and bring them in.
Okay.
You know, each time a set of conditions comes from any board or commission, the applicant has to be able to kind of wrap their head around those. And I know in the case of In-N-Out, this gentleman has not delegated the authority to make those kinds of decisions. They're going to have to take it back, noodle it amongst their executive committee, and then come back to the city.
And there is an intermediate step in there where they don't appeal it, but they come back to staff, and staff has a little arm wrestling session, and you get 8 of the 10 things, and they move on.
I think that's the way that the staff report was actually written, that if there are recommendations that come back, it would be handled with the director of planning, is that correct?
Correct,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. All right. Let's start with something easy. Member Elliott. Take us through the landscaping.
Okay, all right. Well, I have some questions, and I'm going to just kind of start, I think, in the upper left-hand corner, because that's the kind of the thing that jumps out at me right away first. That right there. What are you connecting to right there?
The frontage road going to the west is supposed to continue along once I'll let Tracy speak on US Bank's
So
deal
this is part of
makings.
this is going to continue, you're planning on continuing that
Yeah,
language?
so the meandering trail to the east that currently is in front of Coco's.
Yeah.
The request of staff and planning commission was to continue that trail along as we travel west. And then in Tracy's negotiations with US Bank and further tenants to the west, that frontage road will be continually abandoned as it continues along, going west along East Bend Canyon.
And continue the meandering sidewalk and create, I alluded to, a deceleration lane from Sunrise all the way to Smoke Tree Lane, which gives a third lane on Highway 111 so that any car seeking to enter these properties can do it with a right hand in, right hand out.
Okay, do you have a sense of the timeline for when that happens?
Yes, so the piece in front of US Bank, we have permission to construct, and we'll do that concomitantly with In-N-Out.
Okay, so it's not going to look like it's a road to nowhere for long, if at all, ever?
Correct.
Okay, all right, well, that's good. lawn that I'm seeing along East Palm Canyon, is it your desire to continue that language as well along the frontage? Because it's a pretty dramatic departure from what exists in that portion of the city at the moment.
I don't want to speak to in front of US Bank. We appreciate the design element. We're meticulous about our landscape maintenance and the look of our sites. Really confident with how our landscape architect has designed this to create a walkable path along East Palm Canyon. And I think it's just going to beautify that corner.
Is that grass, is that turf on there?
Correct.
So how does that work with the state legislation to remove turf by 2029? In a commercial setting, in a homeowners associations, in public locations, the turf needs to, non-potable water cannot be used to irrigate turf past those dates. So is there a plan to use, potable water?
Tracy, is there recycled water at this site?
We have recycled water to the south. There's a major recycled water line. And there's currently grass. I would say not all grass is created equal. I'm not sure that the rest of the center, which has a master lessee, is married to the grass.
It's non-functional turf is the idea.
Yes, I
Non-functional
understand.
turf has to be removed if it's being irrigated by potable water.
Yes, well, it was evaluated by the DWA years ago on the rest of the village and allowed to stay. Should it come out in places, what I'm saying is there's a hierarchy of where grass is desirable, maybe, and it is also an interesting magnet for certain activities. So, if, this is the landscape design from In and Out, if you want more.
All I'm asking is there non-potable water
Available.
on the site to irrigate the grass that we're seeing here? Otherwise, that grass is using water that cannot irrigate it long-term.
Understand, there is non-potable water at the south of the site. There's a massive recycle line.
Mr. Elliott, what could you suggest in lieu of turf?
I'm looking for just the consistency along that corridor. So right now, there's a lot of DG, certain portions look a lot better than others. So it just seems to me to be pretty strikingly different to just see that big swath of green there that's in a location that isn't particularly useful, right? So it's not even against the sidewalk, so you can't even enjoy it as a pedestrian. You're really only seeing it from a vehicle. You are showing a little bit right here, again, that's vehicular oriented, and you have a patio right here, and you're blocking everybody's access. That wall, if you just move the wall over and put the turf next to the patio, then young families who are eating there have a place for their kids to run around and play on while they're sitting there at a table next to them. So there seems to be turf that's sprinkled around the site without a lot of thought about how to make it a usable element within the landscape. I am totally opposed to non-usable turf, but okay with usable turf used in the right ways. And so that would be, a comment. I have heard and seen, and I agree with the comments relating to screening. I think that screening of the cars in the drive-through ought to be a very strong priority to this landscape plan. A very robust screening so that even the people eating lunch or dinner on the patio aren't feeling like they're just surrounded by cars. It ought to be like a little magic act where when you're sitting there, you see nothing but green, right? That would be a win. And I think that the landscape plan has a lot of variety in the plant palette, which is good and bad. There is not to my eye anyway, there's no sort of thread or foundational backbone to the landscape that the rest can then be a foil to. So that screening element could be that foundational unifier maybe to the site that brings some sort of strong backbone and almost monotony if you will, that then makes sense of the rest of the, what I would call chaos, okay? So a little monotony would be, I think, really, really good to calm the landscape down a little bit. You should not really be able to see those cars, or you shouldn't be able to see, let's say, 80% of those cars when they're in the drive-through from anywhere, unless you're maybe literally in the parking lot. As you're driving down Smoke Tree Lane, as you're on East Palm Canyon, even, you know, driving through, that ought to be job one of this landscape, is to screen all of that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think what we want to do with respect to what Member Dillon is speaking of, because he is correct, the
Member Dillon or Member Elliott?
Well, both. But with respect to the issue of functional or non-functional turf. And what I would suggest, we're not going to solve it here tonight, but I think what you want to do is have your landscape architect go back and look at the Desert Water Agency Ordinance number 80.
Okay.
And then you want them to look at AB 1572. So that he understands what these two ordinances are. Ordinance 80 is coming from our local water purveyor. 1572 is at a state level. And he is correct that we are to be getting rid of what is considered non-functional turf. And there's quite a clear definition of what it is, and it's not to make something look pretty. So we don't have to solve it tonight, but I think have your landscape guy understand those two ordinances, and then if this site plan needs to be revised in terms of the frontage, we can make that happen. I think what's important is what Charles said, is that there needs to be a continuity across the front of this shopping center, that this design might be able to do better. And I think he also, I heard him say the notion of bringing together a unified sense. It's great to have variety in plants, but that this thing has an overall visual hanging together of the landscape. And I think that's what you're talking about, right?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Noriko, are you getting this?
Yes.
For the
So
drive-through
what we're
screening.
going to do at the end of this is, we're going to ask you, what are all these bullet points? And we'll summarize.
I just have one more quick thing, and I know it's been mentioned, but shade trees. The conditions are clear on what the city is now considering a shade tree, so I applaud the two species that you're suggesting. There are a number of accent trees that I'm seeing sprinkled in here and there. I would replace 40% of those with more shade trees. Just put shade in there. Just give us the shade trees. Especially where they're screening any areas where hot cars are going to be, people are going to be next to it, and where the public's going to be walking on the sidewalk.
And are there any other trees that you would like him to consider in terms of the palette that otherwise Tracy Conrad has spoken about?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ulmus parvifolia is a good, Quercus virginiana, a little slower grower, but.
That's live oak?
Yeah, coast live oak.
For us, you're going to need to give us the
Southern
common
live
name.
oak, Southern live oak, sorry, yeah.
Southern, okay.
Yeah.
What was the first one, please?
It's Ulmus parvifolia, also known as evergreen elm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any others?
Dalbergia, Sissu.
I think the Dalbergia and the Tipu have already been mentioned.
Yeah. The Prosopis, mesquite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I piggyback on what you were saying
please.
about landscaping just quickly?
Yeah.
In looking at the grading plan, it doesn't seem like there is any adjustment to the grade where the headlights of the car and the drive-through would be aiming directly at the residential across the street.
I think we've got,
Maybe I
we've
read it
got, we
wrong.
got berming along East Palm Canyon, and that in between what I'll call the non-functional turf along East Palm Canyon.
Okay.
Between that and the meandering sidewalk, there's
Residential right here.
there's grade there.
And what I'm concerned about is 42 cars at bar time at 1 o'clock in the morning or 1:30 in the morning, pulling into this drive-through and blinding every resident directly across the street. This landscape in the plan doesn't look like it's bermed. I don't know if it is up here either, because there's residential directly north and to the northwest of this as well. So the headlight in a business that is predominantly drive-through.
Sheet LP1, there's a 3 to 4 foot screening shrub along the area that you're mentioning.
A shrub or a berm?
Shrubs along that eastern edge.
I'm not sure that's really going to be that effective unless they are stacked up and lined up in very close proximity.
Yeah, it needs to be a wall and or a hedge or both. And I like the idea of the berming too, because
you can landscape that.
Yeah, then you can. It's like you're displaying the landscape to the perimeter, which is a nice.
Yeah, when I'm looking at the 420 at the drive lane, the 420 exists in the median as well. It's just the exact same level. So that drive lane has its cars pointing directly at the residential across the street is at the same level. There's no mitigation of that.
But Enrico, correct me if I'm wrong here, our condition states that we have to screen headlights from the drive-through to any adjacent property. So we're conditioned as such, so I'm confident that the way that we do it, we'll screen it. We're not gonna skimp on landscaping. Field-grown trees, larger gallon shrubs on the onset. We're not going out there to plant 1 gallon shrubs that look like little babies that are gonna take 5 years to get mature to actually do what the condition says. They need to be in place on day one.
I can see that in your landscape plan. I can, there's an intensity, there's a quantity, a level to the landscape that is nice to see. Okay, so that's fantastic. But there needs to be sort of rigor in the decision-making to make sure that those all really count, and that drive-through is very well buffered.
Well, and I think what you've said, and I've heard, wall, hedge, berm.
Yes.
And I think where we've got these fairly narrow landscape strips between Smoke Tree Lane and the drive-through and between the service lane into the shopping center where it looks like, what is it, about 5 to 7 feet?
Yeah.
Maybe those are the areas where it makes sense to do a wall. You guys, I think, need to be the ones to determine that, but I think what you're hearing is a strong concern that we make sure those headlights are controlled, not in 10 years when the plant matures, but the day you open.
Correct.
Okay. Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's perfect.
Okay.
So, that was easy.
That was easy, right? All right, let's move on to the architecture. Can we pull up, starting with the elevations? There's where we started. Vice Chair Walsh, can you just remind everybody what was brought up in the subcommittee meetings and what we were hoping to achieve? And some of the things that are already on the list, like the squaring of the corners and some other things.
I think that those were specific directions given to fix a larger problem, which is building elevations that are a little bit confused and inconsistent. And in the subcommittee, we spoke of issues like avoiding a mix of a couple 50s elements with a couple things that were modern or of a different time era. And we were looking for something that looked like it was more thoughtful in how it was put together as a whole, rather than some pieces and parts that were kind of amalgamated with an intent of solving each of those problems. The specifics of that were, to try the building, to try to remove the curve in the building. Another one was to not have shed roofs rather to have flat roofs with a slightly larger overhang, and yet keep the overhangs thin. It needs to be driven architecturally by staff or who they tap to do this, to pull it together so that these corrections and elements that we have found a problem with, we fix.
I think what we need to do, though, is we need to give as clear of direction as we can to staff. Otherwise, the interpretation is going to, it's going to get muddled. So would you make it a condition, and we can certainly all vote on it when the time comes, to get rid of the shed roofs and turn these towers into flat horizontal towers?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we see one of the 3D renderings of the building? Because I feel when we're looking at this, it's so flat that I'm trying to understand all of the towers. I see 4 of them, one on each facade of the building. And I'm trying to figure out why there are so many.
I think they're hiding their mechanical equipment among other things.
Well, if you go back to
Understand
the,
that, but they're aggressive, I think.
it's just the larger trend with fast food. And that was, if you looked at the 1970s version of In-N-Out with a gable or hip roof, and the signage was on the fascia, or the signage was freestanding somewhere. At some point, all of the fast food restaurants went to the idea of hiding more mechanical equipment and building towers for signage. And it's what we have. So telling them to get rid of the towers is like telling them to take away their identity.
No, that's not what I was saying. What I was saying was, maybe we don't treat them all the same. Could there be one that is taller, the other ones are shorter?
Well, what we talked about in
That's just a question.
in the subcommittee meeting was looking at this as a kit of parts. And each one of these towers has a different element to it. So that one we're looking at here has the front door or the main entry. So the main entry, it makes sense to pop that thing up, to recess that entry in, it's facing south. However, if you go around to the dining side where folks are on the outdoor patio, keep going, there's a better view. They've elected to treat, that one was fine. They've elected to treat that tower identically. And if you look at their plan, it becomes an electrical room or a service room, and it has the same presence, it has the same vertical height, and it has a door that is on a patio next to the dining that nobody's ever going to go in, and they don't want you to go in, but it has the same architectural qualities. It has some detail around the door, this element's popped up, and it has all those features on it. We asked them to simplify it. Some of them got simplified. So if you go around to the northwest side, that tower got simplified. This one somehow just has some kind of momentum to it where it just has all these little details on it. And so far, they're unable or unwilling to change that. That tower, this one here, improved. It's improving in just the massing and the way it's treated. So it was a kind of a secondary tower that they eliminated some things on. And so they're making improvements, but the height of these things somehow is set because it looks like the signage is going on there, and the signage needs to have some kind of white space forehead above it, which drives the top of the tower up.
I think that there's also, like I was looking at the Westwood pictures, and a lot of people seem to think that this should be very much like the Westwood. I think we're almost there. I think where the mix is that we've got these butterfly areas, which I love. We've got these sharp angles, which I also like. What's throwing me off is that Art Deco roundness to those corners, where it's giving it that diner feel that doesn't feel classic Palm Springs.
I think that's already in the conditions, though,
Yeah,
to get
okay.
rid of those.
Yeah, I think that, like, I'm all about the growth and modernization, right, of Palm Springs and paying homage to these great architects and these great structures. This is one place that I think we could get away with making it very Palm Springs and cool and Instagrammable, that there's just something missing from it. It's really close from the structure of it. Yeah. I would not go and make it look like Smoke Tree. Absolutely not. Yeah, I think it's far enough from that development that it's its own thing.
So, long way around the conversation. Remember, Dylan, I don't think we're going to get rid of towers, or we're going to be able to change the heights of them. So, it's flat, not flat. It's 3,500 degree Kelvin light or not. It's that color white or not. It's, you know, it's at a little different level.
And they have to be white? I mean, could they be even, I don't know.
Well, that came up before, you know, we've got red LED. We listened, and that's why we're going with the white here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did have red LED around the.
I mean, I've got a list of things that you well know what we've changed through the iterations. I didn't want to kind of repeat it, so, but I'm happy to go over design elements that we've changed throughout the process.
And I think it behooves you to make it clear that the latest graphics that we see do not incorporate the recommendations that planning.
Correct. I got those on Friday when the published staff report became
Just
available.
so people understand that.
So
yes.
what's seen in front of you does not take into account planning conditions number 18.
Does anybody have thoughts on the glass block? I think when it came through at the subcommittee, I, for one, didn't want to see people's shoes through the window. There were windows that went all the way down to the ground, and there's booths immediately inside. And so the idea, I guess, went into whatever the design process is at In-N-Out and came back with, okay, we'll use obscure glass block.
The wainscot level all the way wrapping around to address that comment that was made.
Fitting, not fitting, that corner gets squared off, does glass block still work? What does the committee think?
It feels like a vague reference to an Art Deco or Art Moderne move that seems inappropriate for what the rest of the building is trying to do. I can't look at those illuminated palm trees on the side of the building and think that they're about this far away from being pink flamingos.
Yeah.
And it just feels like you could drop this into Miami Beach and it would look perfectly at home there. But it just doesn't feel like it looks perfectly at home here. And I'm struggling with a lot of things with the design. I know the color, corporate colors, for what that's worth. I just don't know how you tile what I can see are disparate design elements together in a way that's coherent, that feels like it's of this place, because I think that's what's missing. And it doesn't feel contextual to me at all. It doesn't feel like it has any relationship to its neighbors. When we look at the 3D renderings, one of the things that I'm struck by is that an image like this is showing a 3-story, 4-story building across the street that's bright white, bright white, bright white, bright white. It's like there is this effort to make everything in the images reflect the building rather than the building reflecting everything that's around it. It's sort of missing the point. And I struggle with that.
Even the mountain has snow on it if you look closely.
What's it?
Even the mountain has snow on it if you look closely.
Yeah, it's like there's this effort to make everything bend to the will of the white. And I get that that's a corporate color scheme, but it seems as though it is not trying very hard to be a good neighbor. think it stands out like a sore thumb.
Was the palm tree motif something that was part of the list of conditions?
No.
How fixated is corporate on those palm trees?
Candidly,
Candid.
they're fixated on the look that it currently is.
Forgive me, repeat that.
The renderings before you are, for lack of a better phrase, our last crack at this. You know, I've read the conditions that were presented, and we're willing to make more adjustments and work, but, you know, a wholesale redesign, and this is where it gets, to your point, it gets difficult, right? If you guys had the stroke and brush, you could create what you want. But unfortunately, the process is made where you have to condition us to make changes that might not be 100%, maybe they're 99 or 90. And that's where we got to find this balance. And I'm doing my best to take input at multiple meetings and convey that to our team for them to come back and bring something. And I think I can fairly assess that we're a far departure at what we brought to Planning Commission. And I think with the conditions that have been added, we can take it one step further to get where we need to go.
All right, so again, I just suggesting to the committee that we give them suggestions that we could turn into conditions that then they can consider holistically. And I know we're trying to get there. You know, where's the straw that breaks the camel's back? I think we got to figure out where that is, right? We got to be one step this side of breaking that camel's back. And, you know, and I don't know where that is exactly, but those little red palm trees are kind of goofy. So I would put that in a motion when we make a motion as a condition that
Get rid of the palm trees.
the palm trees go away.
I would sharpen those round Art Deco corners.
Yeah, I think that's already in that condition.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The glass block, is there another material that the committee could suggest?
Just fritted glass, I think, just some sort of.
The problem with glass is there's shoes and feet and.
Yeah, but if it's fritted, if it's still giving you the opacity that block.
Okay, so you're saying
more
some
texture.
translucent glass?
Yeah.
And maybe breeze block the bottom. See how there's glass all along the bottom sides? You can breeze block that to look more Palm Springs.
Could it even be colored spandrel glass, that you get another band of red down there?
I'm with you. I don't like to see, you don't want to see under the table. It's just a bunch of visual clutter, so.
But the committee's just troubling with Miami, Palm Springs.
Well, I think saying goodbye to those little palm trees would get you a long way where you want to be. And it may not be music to corporate ears, but I think we're trying to get something that works.
To get rid of the palm trees, can we leave the glass block in?
Well, without the rounded corner, so the glass block wainscot goes to the corner. I guess, I think it's the height of the glass block and the radius of the glass block that's most problematic. I don't think one really sees it down low, so, yeah, I think that's reasonable. How about any additional screening at the drive aisle where the food is being served? Should there be screen block along there? Should there be an additional element? Can we look at the other side where the...
Yes, you can see that.
So between the roadway and the cars, should there be a 5-foot screen block wall? Should there be, I think we call it breeze block in town.
Yeah.
Should there be a breeze block, there's your element running along there?
I mean, I think if you do that, you have another language. Somehow that ought to find its way into the rest of the site.
It should occur more than one place.
Yes. In the same way that you're suggesting that, maybe that's the solution to the glass block, is to use something like a screen block that is then backed with a solid surface. So you're not dealing with all this stuff. It brings that same notion of breeze block into some other part of the building.
Yes.
I think glass block is part of what makes it look so self-teach deco. It doesn't fit in Palm Springs.
Yeah, you throw in the repeated little palm trees that could be flamingos in.
Could we look at a site plan so we can just kind of get an idea of length and location? Yeah, maybe the site plan isn't the best.
That previous view, yeah, that
Yeah,
elevation.
the elevation. Keep going, that kind, yeah.
There.
That one.
Yeah,
That one right there.
Does anybody know what the height of those service windows are? Are those 8 feet, 6 feet, 7 feet? Kind of want a band going across there that just takes those out.
It looks like 6 to 8.
So the top plate at the tower is 10 feet. The drive-up windows head looks like it's maybe at about 8, 7.5 or 8.
Well, it would seem like screen block, breeze block from that column to that column. Right. At maybe a foot below those windows.
It also provides a unifying element.
Yeah. So say 7 feet. Do you know what we're getting at?
No.
Okay. So breeze block is a block that's partially open. So breeze comes through, but it is a character defining feature that's used often in town to define projects in a way to feel grounded and feel part of the lineage of architectural expression here. So if we had that here, in addition to the landscaping that's in the foreground, I think it would just start to speak the language of Palm Springs. And then could we use that elsewhere where we've said berms and block? Outboard for headlights, maybe, maybe not.
Yeah. If that became an element in the landscape, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't think there's any appetite for changing this to be a block building.
No.
Okay.
Well, and then your other comment between the patio, useful turf, and a wall, that could be screen block. Kids aren't going to go through screen block.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it remains open and airy, and
Yeah.
and if all the cars that are queuing up are electric and they're not gas powered. Can we look at the elevation that's on the little patio? Keep going. That one. Can you just flush this?
It was brought up before. One concern there is it's a doorway. Cal Green code saying we have to have an overhang there. I have ran into that in jurisdictions and have been called on it, which have led me to recess the doorway, even if it's a service door. So it was brought up.
Can you pull this, can you pull that down to the top of the door so it feels less important? It's just surrounding the door. The door's pushed in. This thing's not 5 feet above the door.
I think that's something that I can explore. But the recess, we'd want to.
Well, if you keep the recess, but just bring that portal down so it's not mistaken for something important. Can we go to the elevation, south elevation? I know in the subcommittee we talked about providing shade from the door, that main door, over to the patio seating.
Right.
Highly reflective area, very white, bright paint. The concrete surface is going to be bright. There's not really any trees in that proximity. What stopped your team from pulling that canopy over to get close to that door?
I'm in part of those discussions with the design team. They're driving that in discussions that I'm not entirely involved in. It was definitely relayed to that team. I know that there was a design feature between the.
You got rid of that, and that's
we
great.
got rid of
Yeah.
that. I think the thought there was to still maintain separation between the canopy and the entry to the building, rather than having it dive towards it and still create that distinction. I know that they did look at studies of solar orientation to make sure that that first patio table would be shielded with shade from that, so that's why they extended it to where they did. I know that was done because it was extended further than what was seen previously.
Would they be amenable to putting a tree in here?
You know, we've gone round and round about tree wells at the front. You know, we were trying to create this uniqueness, and it's especially at this southern elevation being prominent at the entry to the store. Once you introduce trees there, then you're blocking the view from the parking lot to this, you know, beautiful frontage of the building. And that's why we've tried to place, you know, traditional landscaping and trees on that western edge, and avoided trying to put trees at that frontage. Although there is a planter, which rendering that shows it as this one. So we really try to keep it away from here. It's in this location that we brought a finger out to create more shade.
You make a good point about the ineffectualness of the landscape, but I think to simply extend it, we're all sitting here thinking how hot that's going to be, and just, you want a quick run out the door and sit at the table. It just seems like something that should be revisited. It is important.
It feels like one bay, one additional bay there.
That illustration right there helps exemplify how scorchingly hot,
Totally.
dry, and uncomfortable
Right.
that whole entry sequence is.
Right. It's kind of on the A list, I think.
So bring that, you know, again, go back to the team, ask them to bring that canopy over one more bay. Can we go to that elevation? Because I just kind of scaled it with my hand. It doesn't hit the tower. So that extended one more bay gets me in here with that. So there's still some white space between the sign, the tower popping out a little bit, and this thing providing that additional shade. Can we go to the shed canopy for, I think it's team members out in the drive aisle element. I think there's a specific name for it.
Associate canopy.
Associate canopy. So that feels really weak. And one way that when we have these, we just double up the columns. So for every single column at the corner, if you pair two columns together, it starts looking like it's less utilitarian, less like it's gonna fall over or walk away, and starts feeling more like there's some intention behind it. So I would suggest pairing up those columns, whether they're north-south or east-west, just pair them up so that there feels like there's something more robust going on at those corners. And if you wanted to, let's just say these are 5-inch diameter columns, you could go to 2 4-inch. You know, they don't need to get big and chunky and heavy. They just need to be doubled up so that it feels like there's something there. And if you could incorporate that breeze block into one end of this, the end that's out on the drive aisle, that would help additionally take what is this Palm Springs kit of parts and move that around the building so that it's on, at least on 2 sides. Pretty simple measure to just give some additional shade, particularly on that east side early in the morning when the sun's coming in. The trash enclosure, could we look at that? That's being modified to be the columns, the round columns, or are we stuck with this as the proposed solution? Because it's following the old design.
Is it a question to me?
Yeah, it's a question.
That's our current design. That has not taken into account the condition as written.
Okay, so I think this needs to speak the same language as the canopy, that the patrons are sitting and dining outdoors under, the associates are positioned under, and then this thing somehow pairs of columns at the corner. The solid elements around it are probably good, but if there could be breeze block incorporated in this where you're not seeing into the inner workings of this. I understand that you guys take pride in this, and I'm sure it's clean and power washed and all the other things, but just the heaviness of this, and it should be lightweight and doing all the things you needed to do, but just in the same design language as the rest of the center. Anything else?
I'm sure there is, but I think that is a good list.
All right, we have a good list. So, Noriko, can you give us back the list that we came up with?
So I was just taking the notes of what's being mentioned. The
Okay,
first one,
well, bullet points, please.
all right, so the first one is get rid of the architectural indentation, which is the palms.
Yep.
And the second one, I did not get the full information, but it was about the glass block treatment at the corner.
Well, the building's getting squared off, so that is one of the rounded elements that I would understand to be part of the squaring off. It was already a condition.
Okay.
So as that squares off, the tall glass block at the corner becomes meaningless. But the wainscot, the small little glass block down below is fine. I think the committee's okay with that.
Okay.
There was a suggestion to turn that into breeze block with something backing it up. It could be that as well. If the design team embraces this breeze block idea, that would be great.
So, the breeze block on the north elevation at the bottom, is that right?
Yeah, all along that
The canopy.
canopy,
That where the drive-up windows are.
where the drive-up window.
Okay, so we want breeze block incorporated at the drive-up window canopy.
And it looked to be 45, 48, 50 feet.
Something
It was
like that.
Yeah.
And there was a comment about the patio turf and open space by the dining area. The east elevation, Chair O'Donnell, you mentioned about the recessed door, asking if it can be flushed.
I think the recessed door's fine. What I think we've agreed to is pull the top of that portal down.
Down, right.
To the top of the door.
So you want to recess the height of the service door portal.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't read as an entry door.
Correct.
And then you mentioned about extend the canopy, the east dining area towards the entrance door.
Or Bay West.
I would take it over the door.
You would take it over the entry door.
The whole purpose of it would be to give you desperately needed shade when you walk out into the blazing sun on that south elevation, period.
So they extend it to the door?
Correct. Somehow it can work architecturally.
To the door, you mean to that
over the
moment
door.
there?
Extend it over the door, so the door is actually giving you shelter as you're approaching the door.
Right.
I think architecturally, that's kind of a non-starter. It interrupts that tower and makes the sign disappear.
That's going to be a difficult
Yeah.
ask. One more bay.
That's-
I think they have runway there. Over the door is going to be.
I
mean, it's gotta
totally get
end.
what you guys are saying, but you get out of the door and you make a quick right. All right, let's ask for what we think is the most appropriate, and
This is a list of what we would like to see.
What if you get none of it?
I'm not done
sorry,
yet.
put it out.
Keep going. Oh,
I'm not done yet, yeah.
no, I know.
Couple other items that you
I'm
mentioned.
cross-checking you. Go ahead.
You mentioned about the associated canopy, double up the columns at the corner,
Yes,
and then the transfer enclosure design.
And add screen block on the east side.
correct.
And screen
Incorporate
block.
breeze block there.
Okay.
And that segues, Noriko, into the trash enclosures to match the associate canopies.
And then trash enclosure, incorporate breeze block.
Correct. They should be matching the associate canopies, what they call the associate canopies. I just want to see, Noriko, there were a couple other things when you're done there at Charles talked about. Robust, under landscape issues, robust screening as a foundational unifier. Evaluation of turf, there was discussion there.
Sorry, I started writing by hand and I moved on to the computer, so thank you, I appreciate it, so please go on. Go
Okay,
ahead,
yes,
I was
and
listening.
then shade trees, more shade trees.
More shade trees.
You heard the battle cry.
I would just say wherever we see these little landscape walls, they should just become breeze block, just.
In terms of site issues, more berming. And thorough headlight screening. And it was sort of a postscript on that one, but is there a way of incorporating breeze block? We asked the question there.
I think we've said breeze block enough.
There was a discussion of adding southern live oak, evergreen elm, or mesquites, and/or mesquites.
Yes. Yeah.
So Member Elliott, if you got a note back on your desk the day after a committee meeting and there were 4 or 5 different trees, would you be able to go, okay, I get what they're trying to do here?
I would be able to do that, yeah.
Okay.
I'm accepting.
Should we narrow it down?
I mean, I think having some varieties, especially along Palm Canyon, would be great.
All right.
And then you're not so species reliant, if one of them, for whatever reason, isn't super happy there, you got others that are, seems reasonable.
Okay.
I have a note here that says, change the shed roofs on the towers to flat roof.
That was me.
But that was when you kept the curve.
Correct.
It was what?
That was when the curve was. Yeah.
The curves are already gone.
Yes. So nix my comment there.
So you're okay with shed roof?
Yes, it's fine.
It's a good thing we're going through these. I was confused on that one.
Do you have anything else, Noriko?
I think there was a comment about 40% of the trees to be replaced using the more shade trees.
He was saying to
Yeah, the accent
replace
trees.
40% of the non-shade trees with, to put as much shade as in as possible.
Yeah.
All right, how do we turn this into a motion?
Have we captured all of your issues?
Yeah, have we, okay, well, we can capture anything in further discussion after we get a motion in a second. So, Vice Chair.
I would make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve with recommendations from this list that we've put together with planning staff.
And the planning staff is the controlling entity?
Heading up the design issues that we want incorporated or amended.
Are these coming through as conditions under your
Yes.
motion?
They are conditions of
Conditions.
approval. Thank you.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Member Roseman is seconding. Got a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd just like to say that I'm just kind of disappointed. This is a very significant property, location, opportunity, and I feel like it is just getting missed, and that's just a drag. I like this is, I get it. You're trying to do something that's unique, but it hasn't gone far enough. It isn't, to my feeling, strong enough about the sense of our city, and it's really missing the mark. And we have to decide tonight to try to wrestle this thing down by
incremental improvement.
Exactly, or deny it. Those are our only two options, and they just don't feel like neither one of those feels right. And I feel very handcuffed and hamstrung by the process, and I'm just disappointed. I feel like it's a breakdown, and I don't feel like anyone's going to be happy with the solution, and that is a drag.
Thank you, sir, for saying that.
That's how I feel.
All right, so we got a motion, we got a second. Any further discussion?
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
You guys want to include any kind of statement summarizing what he just said as part of your message back to the applicant?
Sure.
Because what you've done so far is, as you said, little tweak here, little tweak there, try this, try that, da, 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 da. But is there an overriding message that is important for you that you have not addressed here? I mean, you've heard from them, you guys have noodled it, and many of you have said it yourself. Do you want a statement to go back to the owner as well to say, not only these little tweaks and twerps and things, but it needs to be more indicative and reflective of the legacy of Palm Springs architecture, or something like that? Is that what you're trying to communicate?
I think for some of us, it's the first time also seeing this and being put in a position where we have to give feedback when other people have spent a little time with it. So yes, I think, I feel the same. There's a lot of room for improvement. And if it helps to make a statement.
I mean, you guys as a restaurant chain, I love you guys.
Right.
I'm grateful that you exist, truly. You have such an opportunity here to crank this thing out of the park so far and to really make a moment right in the middle of our city that people are going to be talking about this, okay?
For better or worse.
Right now, I don't know that they're going to be saying great things. You have an opportunity to have everybody go, well, not everybody's going to agree ever, but I think the people who come to this city for the architecture will say, man, that place, I love them, because not only can I get an animal style double-double, but they understand what our city is about and how to make great architecture in addition to well-done fries.
I don't think corporate image and contextual design are mutually exclusive, and I think that's what's missing. I think there seems to be, I'm perceiving a lot of resistance because there is buy-in on your end before we had a chance to look at it. So you guys locked into this design, and so as we make these incremental suggestions, I'm feeling a tremendous amount of resistance from the other side of the table to even considering these. And that's troublesome to me because, as Charles said, if this was a home run knocked out of the park, we would use this as a benchmark for what other people can do when they bring a corporate identity into this environment. But this is more about the corporate identity than it is about the place where it exists. And I get that you guys have a standard issue design. I understand that. But I don't think it's too much to ask that it be adjusted so that it feels really relevant to this place. And that's what's missing. And I think that's the thing that makes me sad, makes you sad, makes everybody sad, is it could be fantastic and it's not.
A lost opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ken, another element that enters into this, and not to a prologue here, but the limitation on the number of meetings. Before we know it, we're at a do or die point on these things, and the choices aren't good. And it puts both the applicant as well as ourselves in that position. And I'm sure that legislation was passed thinking, rather than hold developers up and not take them through protracted multiple hearings, but at a certain point, you need time and interface with them to be able to get on the same page and crank out a quality piece of architecture.
I think what you guys are expressing is that they've now gone through 5, including this one tonight, and it's not gotten that much better. They still haven't come closer to what is a contextual, outstanding building for Palm Springs, for the Smoke Tree Village Shopping Center, for East Palm Canyon. It's an iconic corner.
Iconic, I was just gonna use that word, it's an iconic brand.
corner,
Yeah.
and I think you guys have pushed with this applicant for 5 meetings now, and this is the best they've given us. And I think that's what's frustrating. I agree, and I understand.
So, may I just say, as
Yeah,
the
please.
owner of this iconic corner, we understand that not everybody is getting everything that they want. But do you not think that with the conditions as written, which they have already agreed to, and with your additional comments, that it can't find an identity that's consistent with Palm Springs? I would hope that the process could do that rather than deny it and potentially, potentially not have a project. And no one can speak to that, and poor Peter here is stuck because he does not have the authority to agree. I'm sure if he did, he would tell you, okay, let's do, whatever he sees as the building, but he doesn't. So the process seems not unreasonable to me that you've made an extensive list. It's more than just minor tweaks, I would say. And there can be more revisions subsequent to this based on staff's negotiation with the design team. And I would ask you to approve it with those extensive conditions rather than deny it. But I understand if that's what you want to do, that's really unfortunate.
Thank you. All right, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Let's vote on that. Side.
Let's vote. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Member Dillon?
No.
Member Elliott?
No.
Member Roseman?
No.
Vice Chair Walsh?
Yes.
And Chair O'Donnell?
Yes.
The motion fails.
All right, do we want to try again for a motion that's going to pass so that we get these conditions in there, or are we just going to put our foot down and say, this is where we're headed?
My problem is I just don't, like, I would just be, I just can't imagine seeing that there and know that we allow that to happen right there. That just bothers me.
I'm struggling with not being able to follow up.
Yeah.
The conditions, as long as that list appears to you, it's probably not long enough.
I understand.
To get this building where it needs to be a home run or something that everyone at this table would be proud of.
Yeah.
To push it forward with a list of incremental conditions that you may or may not accept with input from the planning department doesn't feel like enough to me. We've just seen this for the first time, and again, it's a gun to the head, make a decision, yes or no. So I have to say no to that. I don't know where you go from that. I don't know how you get more conditions to pull this together in a way that we would feel comfortable. I'm speaking for myself, not for everybody, but feel comfortable that we could give you some direction that you could come back to the planning commission, but not to our committee, to get a final approval of the design. It's that lack of follow-up that I'm really bothered by.
So Ken, where does this effectively put us?
Well, I was just going to say, the question that's in my head is, that is a state law that issue of 5 meetings. If you want to make a condition and ask the owner if they will consider bringing this back to you one more time, I think that would not be unreasonable. That's what's causing this failure right now in this vote, it seems.
Does that require approval with that condition, or would we have the ability to deny it after that conversation?
I think let me try this and see if this will get us somewhere. If you were to include in your motion here a request that, given all these conditions, that you would ask the applicant to come back one more time for a 6th meeting, but one more time so that you have had a chance at least to see that they've incorporated these various conditions of approval to your satisfaction or close thereof. I don't know if the applicant's willing to do that, but I mean, that's what I'm hearing, is you guys are feeling super frustrated. We're here at the 5th meeting. You use the term gun to your head. Do you want to ask the applicant if they would be willing to bring this back one more time so that you could see the final improved product? Is that?
And remember, Dylan, it may not be enough, because I think you said there's just, we haven't conditioned it enough, and even if they did all the conditions, you'd still be.
But here's the thing, we have to approve or deny. If we're approving with that other meeting, I feel like it takes our ability to deny off the table, and I'm not willing to do that.
No, I think we always have the ability to deny at the next meeting, right?
You do.
Yeah. So if they were to agree to come back, make these changes, and then they didn't feel sufficient to the committee members, then it's a vote. Well, we're talking hypotheticals. Would you be interested in coming back?
That is the operative question.
This is going back to, did I think this would be a waste of time to go over conditions? I said no.
Yeah.
You know, this is a process. It's not a perfect process. And we're all trying to figure this out together. I can't, am I happy to come out to Palm Springs again and bring this before you? Yes. I will drive out here as many times as I need to. But I don't know that we're gonna meet every single condition. I'm hopeful that we'll meet a lot of them, you know, and we can bring you a redesigned building yet again, and, but I don't know about the procedures and processes of limiting to 5 meetings. I just don't have that technical expertise and law degree behind me regarding that.
Well, I think normally from the city, from the point of view of the legislative process, it's the same thing that when we deal with a time extension or when we deal with a particular timing requirement when an appeal comes in, we are required to bring an appeal to the deciding body within X number of days, unless the applicant agrees to a longer period. And I think the same thing could hold here too legally. I think what you've got here is, it seems like you have two parties here that are listening to each other. And I think that from what I've heard you say, there seem to be a lot of things here that seem to be mostly willing to be incorporated. I think what you guys need to see is show us then what it is that you're going to bring forward. Because I think that's all you're asking is let us see this one more time. And I think from the legal point of view, if the applicant consents to that, we could have a great value to having a 6th meeting. Yes, it delays it a little bit more. Maybe it takes a month for them to get this thing pulled back together. Time is money, clearly. But maybe that's what we need to see, that you're seeing this, you don't like this, you've added all these conditions, you'd like to see it again. And it could be at that point you'll have a 5-0 vote. It just depends on whether we have an applicant who would be willing to spend the extra time.
So to summarize, we're adding one additional condition, that this redesign, accepting the conditions put forth that failed on a motion, would come back to ARC for a subsequent meeting.
Correct.
Yeah.
At the condition.
Do we need to restate the motion?
No, it's an addendum. Oh, it's a new
Well,
motion.
the motion maker has to agree and the second has to agree to that as an addendum.
But I still have a question about, are we voting to approve, deny in this motion? Or are we just voting to have the
Are we
next?
continuing
No,
this?
you're voting for all the conditions that you just talked about with an additional condition that they actually bring this back to you for one final crack.
But we're taking the approval denial off the table right now.
That would be a continuance.
You like a continuance?
That's what I want to make sure, because I'm not going to approve it just to do that.
Thank you. I guess I just really want to implore upon the applicant to please bring us something that we can approve easily.
It is not lost on me, okay? I want to make that clear. That message is crystal clear, and I will convey that to our team.
I think there's a way to take in the architecture that you've seen in Palm Springs and your brand and make something really cool. It doesn't have to be all white and red. Do you know what I mean? I think there's a way to put more Palm Springs into the structure and the landscape so that it doesn't feel like a big white building with, yeah.
And you can do it. You have done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great success.
Ken, are we all square here, or we need another vote?
How do you feel? Is that something you want to add as a condition or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're willing to bring it back to you.
Willing to bring it back. All right, so we just have another vote?
Do you want to reissue a motion? You've now had a changed motion because now you have added.
Okay, motion maker.
additional conditions.
Oh, help me with this. Okay. Motion to approve with the conditions as articulated in Noriko's notes with an additional, what is it? Requirement.
To come back.
Condition.
Yeah,
Condition that we have one more design review meeting.
Can we take that word approve out?
You
I'm
have
gonna-
to
I'm
make
gonna
a
get
motion,
stuck on
you have
that
to make
word.
a motion to either approve, deny, or continue.
To continue, we would do then.
You can continue. Are you okay with that, Peter?
I was okay with approve with an additional condition to come back to ARC with a revised product that adheres to all the conditions I was conditioned to. That's the best way I can put it. Otherwise, we're just continuing it.
I think that.
And I think we've done great work in 3 hours to, your time is all valuable. And I think we've done great work to identify changes that you all want to see. and we have to bring something back to be re-reviewed by ARC, to be approved by ARC again. So I have two approvals I have to go through, the approval tonight and another subsequent approval.
And just so you know, we respect your time too.
course.
We respect changes that you've made. We live here.
Of course.
Right? We drive by that street every day. So,
100%.
and it's iconic. We all love In-N-Out. I went to the number 12 In-N-Out. I grew up there. I was there, you know what I mean? So like, I get it. I just think that for Palm Springs, it could be more iconic with an iconic brand. Yeah.
I think there's not two approvals, to my mind.
Right.
There's one. Tonight is a continuance, the next one is approve or deny. I don't think it's two approvals, and I'm not going to approve tonight. So if that's what the vote is for, then it's a no for me. So if we write
Dan,
it,
where do we stand?
we say it as a
By doing it as a
continuance.
continuance. What you're trying to implore upon the owner is that if you choose to continue, that they don't appeal that.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to avoid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd like this to come back to you one more time. The owner is cooperative to that. But if you do a continuance, I don't know what's gonna happen when he goes back and speaks with his rest of his team. But what you're trying to avoid is an appeal,
Okay.
right?
And the best avenue to do that is an approval with conditions?
I believe so. You
And,
know, I understand your reluctance about doing it as a continuance.
well, let's see where we land. So the second, Member Roseman, are you okay with that?
Approval with conditions,
Come back to us.
right? And then we get to review that visually and can still deny it.
Correct.
I approve that.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
How do you approve it and then deny it?
Because the material that would come back to you at that next meeting would not be satisfactory to you.
Correct. But
You're
if I'm-
approving it with these conditions to be incorporated as much as possible, right?
It's confusing.
You're making it,
Confusing use of language.
huh?
It's a confusing use of language to approve
Well, I
it.
want to make it as clear as possible so you're comfortable in the way you vote. So what you're trying to do tonight is you're trying to do an approval with conditions. And one of the conditions is that the owner is willing to bring it back one more time to the ARC. Now, if at that next meeting, you guys say it's not enough and you deny it, they're going to appeal it. So I think you're getting as close to what you want as possible if you do it as approval. I think if you do it as a continuance tonight, you risk the idea that they may appeal it up tonight, or tomorrow, I mean. I don't know, I'm not talking with them anymore. I mean, Tracy's got a closer relationship than I do, I don't have any relationship. I'm just trying to figure out,
But approval with coming back to us ensures that they do more work and we get to see it again.
I think he's committed to that.
Yeah.
I just fear that our conditions were kind of lipstick on a pig instead of a wholesale,
Comprehensive.
yes.
Well, I think
Yes.
that's why I'm asking you if there is a statement that you want to add to this list of conditions, that you've really said it here tonight, and if we can capture some of this, I mean, obviously, they're going to hear this because they're going to watch this meeting in the video, I'm assuming.
Your statement.
They'll
that you
get the
just
cliff
did.
notes. Fast forward.
I think we're all on the same page of what we're looking for. It's just being able to articulate it to Noriko so she can provide them up.
Are you okay with that?
I got a little lost as to what the motion is, I'm sorry. I think there's two on the table, there's a continuance, and there's potentially an approval with conditions to come back to ARC. And I'm not sure what's being voted on.
I think the motion was for approval and to come back to us. Otherwise, a continuance, they could just appeal it. and we've
Correct.
lost control at this point.
Correct.
But if we approve it, then it's approved.
Right.
And if they choose to not come back, what authority do we have after the fact?
Can we take a 5-minute recess?
Sure.
Is that possible?
Sure.
Your time obviously is valuable. Can we just have a 5-minute recess?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. I mean, I think we're close enough that we can, that call can be made and see what we can do.
It is the investment of one more meeting, one more round.
I feel like I'm scared of what he's scared of.
reopen the meeting.
Okay, we're reopened. What did you learn?
I don't know that there's a meaningful distinction between a continuance and an approval with conditions. So I don't want to direct ARC. My preference would be an approval with conditions, because just I like the word approval, but that condition that's been added or is potentially being added to come back before you again would give the approval authority to ARC to review what is redesigned and be shown to you one more time for a subsequent approval. Or, I'm not sure how, Ken, maybe you can opine on this, but I don't know that's a subsequent approval. It's either it meets the condition or it doesn't. Because the condition is to bring it back.
Right.
So they would be deciding if we've met the conditions or not.
I think that's
And
that's it.
And that's up for you to decide.
Okay. I think there's one more thought that the group has. And the group knows that there's a list of 8 conditions plus another, I don't know, 7 or 8 that we came up with tonight. So there's a big list of conditions. And if somebody just puts all these conditions into a pot, turns on the heat, and brings it back as some kind of stew, it may not be as great as if you told the design team, hey, look at this thing with fresh eyes. This is Palm Springs. There's a lot of iconic things that go on in this town. The conditions are a guideline, but if you came back with something that was truly fitting for Palm Springs, then I think we could ignore the list of conditions, because we would be looking at something that was
The conditions provide a framework to kind of follow. In that sense, we could use that as our guide if we just take it at fresh eyes with a continuance.
They do, but what our concern is, and I'll articulate it the best I can, you don't want it to become a rigid, you need to do this, don't do that, thing that ends up without a wholeness to it, without a consistency.
Without a soul.
Yeah, and if you hit the target that Lance has just pretty much described, where you really do have something iconic like that, we would get it in a heartbeat.
I think that's what we were trying to say just now, as Tony and I were talking about this. It's in some ways you're saying, rethink this.
Yes.
Without throwing the whole baby out with the bathwater. That's probably where he's going to have to struggle, but I think you guys are communicating, and so I want to not let process derail this, what is a productive communication between applicant and board. So if the terminology of what we're using here is to say, take the spirit of these comments to heart and look at not only kind of the direction that these conditions are giving you, but understand the real spirit of what they're trying to help you turn this building into, which is really an incredible building for Palm Springs. It may mean some of this may be kind of like scrapping some of this building, but the building still has its core functions and its program and its size. So I think what we're really talking about is how does the functionality of this building get wrapped into a skin, into a volume that is more inspiring of Palm Springs, right? Can we do that in the way of, and I don't care which way you guys do it, but is it something that we can do it in the form of a continuance that would then give you enough guidance to bring something back?
Oh, I've got guidance. I've got guidance. I've got a team listening as well. So
Ken, there's one other thing that we could offer up, which is always scary to give somebody a grab bag of stuff and then challenge them to come up with something iconic.
Make it make sense.
Let their team run with it for a couple of days and send us some sketches. And via email, they get our feedback. Is that a possibility?
If they're willing.
We're always willing. I would caution against a couple of days if things.
Yeah, well, whatever it takes.
It's just gonna
If it takes till September, that's fine.
What I feel we have right now is, I hear a reasonable applicant.
Yeah.
Who understands what you're striving for. And whether we call it a continuance, whether we call it an approval with conditions, with the spirit of all this stuff, whatever gets this thing moving into the direction that you are all trying to create is what I'd like to see happen tonight.
Then I ask you that it be an approval with conditions, that you get to decide if they've met adequately or not, because it makes a big difference. It raises the stakes a lot. You still get to say no.
All right, we got a motion. Did we get a second?
We may need to hear the motion here.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Do you want to try to restate
Got to
it?
come out of my mouth. Oh, right. This is a motion to approve and continue.
Continue. Or.
With
Conditions.
conditions as recorded here with Noriko.
With the additional condition to come back to us.
Correct. One more condition for another session where we go through what you have done.
That
All right,
results-
there's the motion. Do we have a second?
That results in an approval or denial of the project.
That results in approval or denial of the project
From this body.
from ARC.
All right, well, I'll second that. So we've got a motion, we've got a second, further discussion.
I think the language is confused with that last addition. I think it's probably, I'm probably,
Basically, approved to move it forward with the ability to review it and approve it or deny it at a later date.
correct.
That's how I understand it. Ken, is
That's
that?
fine, we can make
Yep.
it that way.
Okay.
Are you okay with that, Peter?
Yeah, I think I've stated from the beginning that I don't see a meaningful difference between the two options that
I
were
think it's-
there,
I
so,
think it's-
yes.
All right, we got a motion, we got a second. Can we have a roll call vote?
Member Dillon,
Yes.
Member Elliott,
Yes.
Member Roseman,
Yes.
Member, Vice Chair Walsh,
Yes.
and Chair O'Donnell.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
I want to thank both sides
Yeah.
because this is tough. And you both have been very willing to work together on this. And I think the languaging and the communication that's here, I see you absorbing it. So do the best you can.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
we appreciate
Appreciate your
it.
time.
Yep,
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
And what I would suggest, Peter, is when you go back, circle back with us and let us know what's a reasonable timeframe upon which you would like to come back. Because we don't want this to be any further delayed than you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ooh.
Okay, Architecture Review Committee reports, requests, and comments.
Any comments from the ARC
Any
members on any matter?
We are exhausted.
Yes, we are here too.
Let me be very clear.
Yeah.
All right.
We have done our duty.
I do not have any other comments for today.
Okay, Planning Director's report, seeing none. All right, adjournment 8:30 on July 6th.
Wow.
Thank you all.
That was a night.
That was fun.
A night to remember.
I feel a lot happier now, though,